Meeting to order. Pledge allegiance, please. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, agenda, minutes from the June 4th, June 18th meeting, President's remarks, General Manager's report, public comment, old business, update on foreclosed property, Marty Clark, Jack Collins, old business discussion, process for derelict properties, actions taken, Jack Collins, drainage update, actions taken, Jack Collins, old business again, final yacht club dashboard, Marty Clark, new business discussion of code of ethics, Terry Moore, review of in-year numbers, Marty Clark, view of May and June Comptroller's report, Marty, view of membership report, Marty, resolution C14, first reading, Tom Terry, liaison report, CPI actions and appointments of Bud Ruval, John Ferry, media questions, and adjournment. Any changes or adjustments to the agenda?
Now, as I understand that Bob is whoever raises the flag. 2, 3, 4 of new business, I'm assuming is in Bob's general manager. I can't hear you.
I intend to cover those, but when
Can't hear you.
I intend to cover those, Marty. But you, again, if you put mine on, that's fine. They'll be in the GM report.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Really? You can't hear me?
Barely. I usually talk too loud. Am I okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other changes or adjustments or questions? The agenda is accepted. Okay, moving first to the Wednesday, June 4th work session minutes. Any changes or adjustments to that?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Yeah.
We're on the last page, and at the bottom of the first paragraph,
Yeah.
it says Mr. Collins said that.
He is not a lawyer?
Yeah. So we depend on Joe. I think I said Joe Moore. It sounds a little bit more professional, and he doesn't keep up out of trouble. He keeps us out of trouble.
Okay. He's us. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah. At that meeting, I read into the record and I want to put it into the record, and if anybody needs a copy of it, Michelle will have it. There was a email, memo, letter, whatever the heck you want to call it, from Joe Moore concerning, and it was dated, excuse me, let me put my glasses. It was dated November 9, 2007, and it outlined some procedures in dealing with derelict property. So I want to put that into the
All right. We'll note that as a addendum to the minutes and put them on record. Thank you. Any other changes or adjustments?
I have a question on the first page, M2 policy discussion, the sixth line from the bottom. Mr. Clark suggested 3 days a week for 3 months for $3,600. Marty, I'm not sure what that was.
I'm not either. I don't know what you're reading.
I thought, Marty, it was a gatekeeper, wasn't it? Yes. It's a gatekeeper.
Sixth line from the bottom, Marty.
I think it had to do with someone watching the ramp.
So that would be an employee. Okay, all right. I wasn't sure what that was. And then the other question on second page, junk car removal discussion, sixth line down, starts with the word Battersea that has 4 cars. I think the word should be 4 junk cars that we're talking about, just the number of cars. Am I correct on that? That would be you again, Marty.
Yeah.
It's junk cars, right?
Junk cars.
Junk cars. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. All right, thank you.
Any changes? Motion to accept? Second?
I'll
Those
second.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Regular board meeting, Wednesday, June 18th. Any adjustments or changes to these minutes?
I move to accept.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I vote.
Abstain.
Abstain. Dorothy. President's remarks. I really don't have any remarks at this point. I will move on now to Bob Thompson, General Manager's report.
Hey, Tom, did you want to put those minutes from the,
You may come up in this. If they don't, we'll do it after.
He can have.
He did yours. You like that, didn't you?
this is the one with the,
Yeah, that's one with the, yeah, absolutely. All right, good afternoon. Going to be a little bit long, but I'll try to go through it quickly. A lot of topics to cover. The first thing you're going to see, one of the things that we're working on right now, we're having a lot of space allocation issues. It's been coming up the last couple of months. We're just running out of space with the amount of requests that are coming in. I've been talking individually to you all about that. Trying to figure out the use, follow the policy, the limitations we have, the amount of groups that want to use the facilities, what facilities they want to use. It's just with the limited space, the amount of requests we're having, it's creating some challenges. So there's also seems to be some ongoing confusion on who has the right to use what facilities, who has the right to use it free, who needs to charge, those type of things. So the recommendation that something I'm working on right now is putting together a facility use group that are going to help us, myself and Sonia. Carol Ludwig has volunteered to be on that. And we've got two others we haven't spoken to directly yet. I'm going to get some help, and we're going to review our policies for the use of all the facilities, make sure how we're doing it is appropriate, how to realign the users, how to identify the users. When we're getting new applications from folks, call it either civic groups, community groups, social groups, or somewhere in between, we need to clearly identify where they fit in. And then I'm going to bring that back to the board so you all can take a look at it and decide if that works. And if that's so, we'll go ahead and implement that policy this fall. One of the other things that we're going to do with that group is if that policy is adopted in the different use and fee structures, all those things are going to be looked at. Then when an application comes in and someone's claiming to be a charitable group or any of the groups, we'll route it through that committee to determine which of the categories they fall in. Okay? So that's what we're working on right now. Marty?
is the starting point going to be the resolution that's in existence now?
Yes, we're MO2, okay, already has some policy information in there, but because of the change of status, it doesn't quite get into as deep. You look at 501(3)C or 501(c)(3), or you're looking at some of the other types of committees, groups, organizations. It's creating some uniqueness. And in addition to that, with the limited space with the amount of folks, we're going to have to make some determinations how we want to move forward with. I'm going to ask for help on that once we get that ready. Any questions about that from the board? Nope. Okay. Maitland Meadows Complex. I went in depth on this, not to belabor it, but there seems to be some things that went sideways. And I wanted to bring the board up to speed because you all received in the last 3 or 4 days a lot of emails and phone calls, and I think I figured out where it was. But let me give you a little background so the board can at least be caught up on. First, we began meetings back in the fall of 2013. I think most of you are aware of that. Those meetings included the TAC folks, a couple folks from the TAC committee, Dale Ash and John McNoll. Dale, as you all know, has been the chair of the Tennis Advisory Committee. John McNoll is the president of Ocean Pines Tennis Club. We had Frank Kramer and Julie Wolf, who were the designated folks for the pickleball, and then platform tennis were Mike Petito and Scotty Wheatley. Now, there have been other people that have attended these meetings, but we started back in the fall, and that's also some of what we used to build the budget. We had input from that group. As you know, this week, you all, or I guess last week, Tom included information in the board packet moving or recommending a move from TAC to a racket committee, which is inclusive of all three. So all year we've been trying to work down that path to give pickle and platform more of a voice at the association level and not just tennis advisory committee. We've had our bumps getting that set up, but the team was working real well together up until this last week. Goals was to give each sport equal voice, grow the membership of each sport. One of the things when we first started talking about this was folks will play tennis and then move over to pickle or platform or vice versa. There's a lot participating in both sports. The activities are similar in nature, involving racket, net, movement on court. So it made sense. We also wanted to create some synergy between the sports and not just focus on one, i.e. tennis, when the other two are growing as rapidly as well. And then in addition to that, working with Dave Marshall, he has managed all three activities at one location before. So he gave us a lot of good insight on the overall management of what Tom's going to be talking about today, the new RAP committee as we move forward. December 16th, and this is important because there's, again, confusion out there, and I went back and looked at all the notes to make sure I clarified it. December 16th, we had a meeting. Basic principles by this group decided upon. Priority order. Pickleball courts were the #1 priority for this year. Expansion of platform tennis courts would be the next priority. The third priority becomes clubhouse replacement or renovation. When we did that, the determination wasn't by me, it was by the collective group. Here's what we're going to do to A, make this area work better, B, deconflict some of the things that were happening. Example, with the tennis courts right now, which were fully used and occupied, as the pickle has started to grow, we've had to move the pickle folks down there to start playing on the tennis courts. This was something that came up to board level when we talked about painting the courts. So we've painted a couple of the courts, which then limits some of the tennis activity. So there's a combination of things that have been happening. The neat part is this particular group agreed, let's alleviate or take that problem away, and by focusing on building the pickle courts now, we can eliminate that pressure and make tennis whole and pickle whole. Okay? And then focus on platform with this upcoming year's budget, because we'll be rolling into the fall and talking about the projects. We shouldn't have any major projects for tennis or pickle if we accomplish the pickle this year. That was the intent. That was what was agreed upon by all the senior leadership of all three of those groups back in December. Here are just recent. We had multiple meetings up to that, but I didn't want to list 3 pages of meetings. So I just flew through and listed. There were meetings starting April, May, June, multiple meetings in May. And it included these groups. I wasn't always in the meetings. A lot of times they met with the individuals representing each of the groups. And they met in all these meetings. Each time, this was an area where pickle was going to be the focal point. There was never confusion. Yes, Marty.
This all new thing.
Understood.
About, was it November with Bill Rako and another gentleman gave the board a presentation on tennis in Maitland Meadows.
They did. I don't remember the time.
And a master plan. And the master plan is on our CPI, CIP.
Master plan was not as inclusive of all 3 sports. It had some in there, but it didn't. The group had not met enough to determine what their long-term needs were.
So we haven't done a master plan.
We have. I seem to think we're pretty close to it, but my intent was to have it for you all Friday and bring you the information so we could take action on it. But because things went sideways this week and I couldn't get an audience with the leadership of one of the groups, I decided to hold off on requesting any action on the board and just bring it as an informational item. And then we can decide how to move forward after the meeting.
When can we get an master plan?
In a few minutes. It's coming. Okay? So these
took you so long.
Told you I'd try to go quickly through. Maitland Meadows Complex, group discussions, led to pickleball was the priority. What it did, again, freed up tennis courts, gives pickleball their own courts because they're rotating around on other courts, and then focus next year's budget on platform. This was decided in those group meetings. And I have representatives from the groups that can speak directly to that if we need to. Plan was drawn up and presented to me separate. They went and drew a plan up. Tim Lawn has been very helpful. He helped with Bill Raker when they drew the plan up before. They drew a plan up, and Tim, Sonia, and Jerry Avetta set up a time to meet with me and go over what the initial plan draw was. I didn't have anything to do with how it was drawn up. And in your book, this is what the plan was. A couple of things I want to point out. This is what the first plan that was provided to me or to scale. I want to draw your attention right here to this box. And it's on your sheet, this box.
I got you.
That's the existing playground. So to create pickleball courts right on top of the existing playground and then shrink the playground to about half the size that it is now didn't really make sense to me when it was presented to me. Okay? In addition to that, they were asking in this part of the master planning to have 9 courts put there. They didn't understand what the rationale behind the 9 courts were. I did like right here, there's a flagged parking lot right there. It's on the plan, okay? By making it rectangular, we can pick up a lot more parking right over there. Same area, same location, just pick up some additional parking. And one of the things the plan was right here, this yellow line, was to add split rail fence along the roadway there. Because once cars start parking along that roadway, and we know there's playground right here, kids tend to go across the street either to the dog park, the ball field, or over here to the basketball court. It's hard to see little kids come in between them. So adding the additional parking allowed us to alleviate some of the roadside, because they'll park on both sides, alleviate the parking on the side of the road. That was the plan. Top left of the sheet as I'm standing shows the proposed platform tennis that were initially talked about. All right, any questions about the initial plan? Now, this was... Yes.
When Bill Rako and his team and Tim and everybody put together the original outline of what would be done, as I remember it, it wasn't acceptable to the county because part of the land that they were trying to use was not usable according to the county, right?
Well, what happened?
What's the story around
And I can't remember the exact plan, but I can show you where it was. Initial, this area here. Okay, draw your attention to this. That's the area where the drainage actually flows. If you remember, for years, we had problems on these back courts, water, also up in the platform area, water between the two. We had years of problem with water coming up, problems in there. So, I guess it's 3 years ago now, we set out to figure out what to do, mapped everything out, and figured a way to redo the swales, redo the drainage through here. And it actually disrupted tennis for a period of time while we were trying to get that done. But it ended up solving the ongoing problem of standing water all around the complex. So when the initial plan, and I believe Tim drew that one, had some courts pushed back in this area, and that creates a challenge because we just solved drainage issue. Don't want to turn around and build. Now, I can't tell you definitively, Tom, that the county would not approve that. I'm telling you, I said that doesn't work because here's where it is, and I don't believe the county would support it. Now, Bill Rako may have gone the extra step to the county. He's thorough with that, so he may have done that as well. But this created an issue because we just solved the problem. Now we're going to rebuild on it. That just didn't make sense to.
Yeah,
okay.
I remembered that land discussion as either being the next location for paddleball courts or putting the pickleball courts there.
Yeah, we had looked at it. It's open space, but what happens because of de-drain the wetlands that run back here, and it actually drains properly now, to disrupt that, I believe would be a huge mistake.
Could you explain again who came up with this first proposal? Was this Tim Long?
Well, Tim, Sonia, and Jerry presented it to me.
Okay.
Okay? But they had been meeting, and all those meetings I listed, they'd been meeting with the group that finally came up with this, just as a first shot at planning.
So there's 9
right here.
Paddle?
If you look,
Oh,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the pickleball. At the time, the recommended pickleball courts.
And then 2 additional paddle are the 2 up.
Platform or paddle. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, I had some questions. I actually, I couldn't see making this playground half the size, and my question was, initial request was for 4 courts. Now the presentation to me was for 9 courts, and it was well, we can scale it down. You know, this would be long range plan, and then we could build 4 of them to start, and to build some more later. Which that I understood that. So, asking them to go back, reduce the pickleball courts by 1, because that middle court, when I asked the question, from a viewing and playing, what does that middle court do? It limits, if anybody wants to watch them play, it also, the need for 9 just didn't seem as relevant. The other thing that I asked about, on this side, the courts that run this way, and again, I don't play in any of these activities, but my understanding, the courts that run this way are better suited for the sun during the day and the wind streams. So with this, or one way or the other, Tom, or you guys, there was a question that came up. So
North and south.
North and south, thank you. So that was the other question I had.
It's north and south.
So that was one of the considerations we wanted to look at as well. So I asked them to go back and validate how many courts they needed, courts to avoid the sun and wind, what types of things we're going to go with that. And then also, I believe if we're going to do something with the playground, we can't shrink the playground. I didn't think that was appropriate. So I said, let's go back and reconfigure, look at that same space, because I think that space worked for us. Look at some and we drew and moved a little thing sitting on the conference room table for about an hour, hour and a half. So they went back. The next plan that came back changed the configuration. Instead of 9, where it went this way, changed the configuration here, and there are 8 courts. It also expanded the playground. Okay? Now the playground is a little longer in the original design. It's more squared here. So the square footage is very, very close to what the original square footage is. So we're not really losing any playground with the new design. Okay? And this was the design of the courts. Tim had actually traveled, and in his travels up and down the coast, one of the things that he identified, because he shared this with me, was how people actually watch and play and participate in this activity. This design actually gives the additional room for spectators and some other things going on. So, with that being said, also there was a design for a walking path behind the facilities that connects to the racket facility here, playground, as well as the pickle courts. This is what was then represented to me after discussions back with the group. So, this all happened the 12th, 13th, 14th of June. The revisions were made before I gave it to you last Friday, which was the intent for your board packet, because all the work had been done. I took it to the TAC committee meeting last Wednesday. And Jeff Nepper was there in place of Tom Terry, who couldn't be there that day, so Jeff filled in on it. In that meeting, this plan, I had the actual prints laid out and rolled out and showed previous one I shared with you along with this one. There were no objections during the meeting to this plan from leadership of any of the 3 groups. Am I correct on that, Jeff? No objections. I share that because it was presented to the leadership of all 3 organizations, and it was still a go as of Wednesday. Okay? Now, following Wednesday's meeting is when the wheels came off the bus, and I still don't know exactly what happened, but I'm going to try to put some pieces together because it really got confusing. This is 8 months of work to get to this point with everyone in agreement. I think there was some lack of communication between the leadership and their membership, which created the concern. And if I wasn't getting the info and this was bounced on me, I'd be upset. But it wasn't our doing. Jack?
I have a question for Tom. I'm finishing my first year here, and I want to make sure I got this right. This is an advisory committee. Well,
the TAC committee, which was the tennis advisory committee, about a year and a half to 2 years ago, an effort was made to start inviting platform tennis folks and pickleball folks to attend the meeting, to participate as a migration, if you will, to this concept of a 3-racket sports center. We didn't change the tennis advisory committee. They just welcomed the folks to come and sit in on meetings and be a part of it. It's been evolving for a couple of years. That evolution is in the motion that I sent you today to change it. So the group that Bob is talking about is kind of an adjunct group that had representatives from the pickleball, from the platform tennis, and from the tennis group, all working hand in hand with Sonia and Bob and Jerry to try to put this approach together.
What I'm hearing you say is that this is not a recommendation of an advisory committee. This plan is not a recommendation of an advisory committee.
Jack, what plan? This?
Yeah,
It absolutely was.
Well,
the ad hoc committee.
Well, wait a minute. Now, again, I'm trying to understand, Bob. I want to make sure I get this right.
The answer to your question is, at the meeting last week, as I understand it, unfortunately I had to be out of town for my health visit. Boy,
Okay.
This was presented at the official TAC Tennis Advisory Committee, and that committee agreed that this should move forward.
Well, am I correct in understanding that an advisory committee is a function of the board? They report to us?
Directly, yes.
Okay. Well, then, how come we're just hearing about this? Why wasn't this evolving?
Because it was.
Well, I don't remember hearing anything about a grand plan. The last time I heard anything about a grand plan as far as the racket sports were concerned was when Bill Rako made a very comprehensive report, and he said, hey guys, this is something you're going to have to consider in the future, and I'm looking for additional feedback from that group, because I'm assuming it's an advisory committee, and I'm getting these emails and I'm seeing this plan, and this is the first time I've seen any plan.
A long time ago, Jack, we endorsed the concept of the advisory committees having members of Bob's staff attend the meetings for them to listen directly to the members of this organization, and that's what they were doing. They were working hand in hand.
I think that's great, Tom.
They were working hand in hand with each other, because they're the ones who play the sport. They're the ones that were given the opportunity to put this solution together. It wasn't the board of directors' job to put together their solution for them. The approach was to let them put it together.
Tom, let's cut that out. Connect the dots here. What I'm saying is that this information should have come back to us at various meetings throughout this period, December the 16th at least, forward, that this situation was evolving if it is truly a board advisory committee.
Chairman of that committee is sitting right here.
If I may.
I'm going to go ahead, Dale. You're the chair of the committee.
In the annual report, under Section 5, recommendations to the committee, which I sent individually to each of you, the recommendation for the construction of the pickleball courts was there. I'm sorry I don't have it on me, but the recommendation was made there. You may recall. Maybe you recall.
It was in their annual report that was shared with all board members, as they are every year. Bob, continue.
Excuse me, since he got an opportunity to talk, you're saying these decisions were made by the RAC committee, but there is no RAC committee. It has not been formed yet.
That's a tennis committee.
That's a tennis committee. The tennis committee.
Which is what I said.
Decisions. I just want to stand.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
First, this big piece of ground here that may be topo, I know it's kind of forested. What's with all this right here? We own it, don't we?
If you walk it, the line is actually right about here, Marty, with the trees and the brush and everything else right here.
So we don't have any expansion in there.
No.
Question 2.
And it's real soft and wet back there, too.
Ocean Pines, soft and wet, I can't believe it. What triggered all the emails?
I'm going to show you that.
Okay.
I believe, and Marty, I can't say definitively because, and I'll show you why in a minute. It really got confusing for me. I spent probably 6 hours late yesterday afternoon into the night trying to figure out why it went sideways, because this was a coordinated effort with all the groups. Absolutely. I didn't come up with this. This was from the group, which included all three of the different sports. I was excited about it because we all worked together to get here. So, again, I'm reporting to the board with accuracy, and I'm going to show you why that's accurate. July 16th, I presented this final project to what at the time is the current TAC committee. However, it has representation and has for the last 6 months, pickle and platform. They were there at the meeting, and they've been at the meetings because all activities are down in that area. I asked for any last-minute additions, questions, concerns before I put it in the board pack. Jeff, can you validate that for me?
Yes.
Okay, so I brought it and said, is there anything else that was missed or not presented that I'm unaware of that I should put on here before I bring it to the board? That's what happened at the Wednesday meeting. Unanimously agreed to this was the right plan to move forward. Now, that Friday, on Thursday the 18th, Saya actually heard from Mike Petito, who's the president of the platform, that they had concerns. Okay? On Friday, and this, Marty, is where I believe it went sideways very quickly. Okay? I tried to put it in there. I didn't give you the full emails because I didn't think it was appropriate, but this is where I think it went sideways quickly. There were some emails and information that started to go out fast and furious within the platform group. First, in response to the latest attack on platform. That was what I think got the wheels rolling. That's what kind of got the wheels rolling, that there was a huge problem, and they were requesting a meeting Monday. Okay? So, through the weekend, other things start to transpire. A letter for a campaign request. Again, you can help an unjustified action by the GM. Again, referring to the plan that was approved by the senior leadership of all three groups. Now, what I'm most upset about, I don't think the platform folks knew about this, the plan. I think there was a miss somewhere. Not intentionally, I just think it happened. July 21st, an email went out. We had gotten an email Friday about the emergency meeting. That morning, this was Monday morning, I came in and said, Sonia, what do you think? She said, I have no idea. I said, well, let's get Mike on the phone, Mike Petito, president of Platform, and ask him, would it be appropriate for us to attend the meeting that Monday afternoon to clarify, to answer any questions they may have, because obviously there's a miss of information. We were told from Mike, no. And the reasoning behind it, he was concerned that we would be under attack for this. I got back from lunch, this was around 2:15, and said, please get Mike on the phone. I'm used to being under attack. Let's get the information out there. There's a miss. No response, so we went, Sonia and I, did you see the email? I invited myself to the meeting. Absolutely not true. We called the president of that association to say, could we come and present, answer, do anything we have to clarify. That is a fact. So following right behind that, we didn't get a response, so we went down. I was met by one of the members in the parking lot, and I said, I'm just here to clarify. I don't know what happened. I have the plans, happy to share and answer any questions. They didn't want me to present, answer questions, or anything at that point. After a discussion for a few minutes, reluctantly, the member said, well, okay, if you want to come over, you can. I didn't think it was appropriate. I wasn't crashing their party. It's up to them to decide. So Sonia and I left, came back to the office. And it was out of respect for that particular member. Okay? So that's what happened where you all started receiving the emails. Up until Wednesday, on the 16th, at the TAC meeting, everything was fine to get this to you all today for action. Wasn't staff-driven, wasn't general manager-driven. This has been a collective effort by all three, the senior people at all three groups. I don't want to say the entire group of any of them because I don't think that's accurate. So, Marty, that's, I believe, why. Between the 2 or 3 emails and the attack, and when you put incendiary words like that, they're call to action and they get people upset. And there was we could not communicate with the group to diffuse it because we weren't allowed to do so. It's really that
For the
simple.
record, I don't think we got that one.
Which one?
The one that had that range.
Gotcha. Well, I can tell you they're out there because I have copies. Okay? So that's where we are. So I think that's why and usually I don't get in that much detail, but I've spoken to 3 of you in detail over the last 3 days about this. That's the best I can do to put together what happened. I'm not real sure because up until Wednesday it was running smoothly. And again, there were bumps, but that group's been great to work with. And for Dale Ash to get up and agree with me, anyone knows Dale and I bumped heads for 2 years. Okay? So there's no, he hasn't been paid off, I can tell you that. So, any questions from the board so far? Everybody knows what got us here. Everyone knows how it happened.
What's the next step?
Well, I'm going to go the next thing to you all. When we looked at moving if we're going to have to relocate the playground, you have to take it apart to move it. We went back and started looking at every piece of the playground. Well, obviously, when you start taking timbers apart from a playground, you're going to have some issues. So when we started to do that, we noticed in greater detail that we have some deteriorating parts on the playground, which raised some concerns. So we went ahead and had ordered for a certified playground inspector to come in and inspect the playground, because if this is part of the master plan to move it, we need to know what involves that. In the meantime, we also contacted the original playground company and said if we have to replace the uprights and the bolts, what would they cost? Just part of the project we need to know. So as of about 2:30, 2:45 today, I received a copy of the letter from the certified playground inspector. Didn't make copies yet. We haven't reviewed it yet. So I'll have that for you shortly. In addition to that, we have a contract. We have an estimate for the materials because they obviously know our playground, and we took pictures and everything else sent to them for the uprights to be replaced. Okay, so we're compiling all that. Rough estimates. The playground uprights, the bolts, everything it's going to take to disassemble and put back together materials only is about $31,000.
Let me just add.
31,000.
Let me just add to that as the liaison to Park and Recs. We knew that playground needed work. It was on our list for this year's work to be done.
So what this does is just put it in the forefront. Now, the upside, if there's an upside to the playground, I mentioned Rec and Parks noted that this year we were going to have to do something or put it in the budget, do something with it. So we're just accelerating a little bit. B, I'll have final numbers. You all know that we approved to do the ball field lights at the park down. Okay, the approved or the amount in the budget was $150. It looks like it's going to be about $122 to replace it. So there's about a 30, and I don't have exact numbers on the cost of the verticals as well as the exact cost to have the lights, but they're the rough numbers right now. So there's almost $30,000 right there of savings in playground or in ball field lights. That what I'm going to ask you to do is, would you consider approving reallocating those funds to replace the uprights for the playground? In either case, we're going to have to get to that.
And Park and Recs was aware of that.
Okay, I had not gotten a report from Park and Rec's committee on it.
Just,
Yes, ma'am.
just to clarify, the playground that is existing out there needs to have some work done, whether it's moved or not. Am I correct? It's looking at approximately a $30,000
In the
number
next 12 months.
plus labor.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the labor, if you recall, that was a community-built playground. So we're talking with the manufacturer. It's placed in, I think it was Virginia, Sonia, we're trying to get a couple others. We're trying to get a labor bid to come and do it, but it's something we did it on weekend when we erected it. We could do the same type of thing. Community support, some public works guys, and some equipment. We can look at that as well.
Will it be ADA compliant? Yeah, because that's been a concern of Parks and Recs, the parks plans, and that's one of the ones that was looked at.
So there may even need some additional funds to make it ADA required.
Well, I'm hoping the playground inspection we just had, and again, it was like 8 or 9 pages, I just hadn't had time to look at it yet, will identify any of those, any other concerns we may have. That's why we went to a certified playground inspection. Okay?
Hold on,
Yes.
before you move on there. You talked about the lighting, and I seem to recall when we were discussing that in the budget, we kind of felt that 150 was a pretty hard number. And now you're coming back with about 125, 122. Do you feel that's a hard number? I mean, we can really depend upon that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so
And I'll
there's
do
a real savings there.
And just to clarify, the next 2 weeks, those lights will be finished. So we'll get the bill, we're going to know the exact number. Okay. This was, and again, I meant to move this to an earlier slide, but when we started the budget, that's when we started combining 3 entities. We started pulling groupings together so we could get input from all 3. Yes.
You said the lights are almost done. That bids and that was we did.
Yeah, we
sorry,
yes,
I
we
don't
did.
hear you. Yeah, we did.
I do.
Sorry.
We did.
Back up.
Back up.
The capital items included in the budget that we just passed were 2 platform courts and 4 pickle courts, I believe, for $135,000, right?
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
So that's what was in the budget.
Yes.
And at the swim and racket club, replacing existing tennis courts. Is a replacement reserve, not new capital. We're going to build them at Mangrove Meadows. That's new capital.
Well, it also depends. You can talk to the accounting, not our internal, but external accounting about that. If you're replacing courts, if it's on your property, it can be, and this came up, I'll give you a great example. When we moved the yacht club from here to here, that was the big argument. It's not in the same spot, not the same club. It can't be replaced. It can be, and that's how it was recorded. Same thing with, I asked that question from the budget side of the house because I wasn't 100% sure. And the information I got back was, yes, it can be replacement because you're replacing courts, even if it's a different location. Again, I'm just giving you from an accounting Q&A.
From the director, can we get that writing from our accounting firm?
I can ask, sure.
Replacing non-existent pickleball courts, non-existent platform tennis courts with replacement reserves for 4 tennis courts at the swim and racket club. I can't make that neat.
Okay.
The issue for me was, although Marty's point's well taken, because I had the same questions.
And they were covered during the budget.
What?
As I understand, it's not they were covered extensively during the budget process. That's not new.
Still have accelerated over R&R in some places, but that's okay. I can get past that. The 135 is still sitting there. What are we going to do with it?
Well, that's what you're going to decide, not me.
Yeah, well, yes.
My recommendation is stick with the plan that's been 8-9 months in the works, but you all get that. I'm not making any decisions on that.
Clarify, 135 is budget for 2 platforms.
Correct.
And when you say the plan that's been in the works for 8 or 9 months, are you talking about the plan I've had in front of me for 8 or 9 minutes?
Well, it's more than 8 or 9, but yes.
Well, this plan I've never seen. I've had this budget book. I sleep with it, and it doesn't have any mention of 6.
Again, a budget, and please understand, again, you move the motion and you think long term. You try to do what's right for the entire association. That's all. And that wasn't
I'll
meant.
vote for a master plan.
I know that.
We
I
need
know
a
that.
master.
Yep. And that's what we're looking at for that whole area. If you remember last year, I said we're mapping that whole Manklin Meadows complex so we can get smarter and not just keep plugging things in. And now there's some conflicts. How do we remove that and think long term? That's what we're trying to do. Okay, some other things with platform, because again, part of the Q&A over the weekend. The platform tennis folks worked hard to receive a grant from APTA. Okay, they did that on their own. They talked about, came to us, said, "Hey, we want to apply for a grant," which was great. That platform and people are rapidly accelerating, nationally as well as locally. Okay, they're both, and that's part of what's kind of got us all put together where we are right now. Those two activities are growing very, very quickly across the country. They applied for a grant through APTA. They were approved for a grant for $5,000. I believe they had 9 others that had requested the grant, at least the literature I saw, and they actually received. They being the APTA gave the grant to the Ocean Pines Platform Tennis Club for $5,000. It was approved. There were 5 stipulations with that, or 4 stipulations that first came out. I don't think I printed that. Basically, of the 4 stipulations, there was only one, which was stip 2, that I was worried about. And it said that the courts had to be built as proposed in the plan. I didn't see the plan, so I can't sign off on what was sent that was approved if we didn't. I assigned you, she didn't see the plan. So from the staffing side, I don't know what was submitted to get approved, so I can't sign off and say, yes, this is a go. We should raise that question, said, need some help with this. What was submitted? Because part of the grant is to build what was submitted. Moving forward from there, receive an email from Mike Petito on 24 June with a change to one of the steps, which was an improvement. Instead of must join APTA, the APTA agreed to encourage membership in APTA, which is awesome, but it wasn't one of the 4 steps that was on the original approval letter. So now it's even more confusing to me, and I'm going, I need some help. I don't know what was submitted. I don't know why we're waiving something that was never on the stipulation sheet. Again, confusion that we're asking for some clarity on. Could not get clarity.
Who submitted?
The APTA submission was by Mike Petito, and I know he had help from other tennis or other. Yes, sir.
We haven't seen it?
I have not seen the submission form. No, sir.
Asked to see it?
I have asked to see it. This was a copy of the letter from the email where they for the grant. These were the steps, and I was looking for the actual letter, but here it is, and they're in your file. That you will accepting financial award from APTA. That's good. Scope of the project will not change from the original submittal. I don't know what that is. That's step 2 I'm referring to. Project will begin between May 14 and May of 15. The 2104 is actually 2014. And please review, sign, and submit post-award requirement agreement. I'm guessing that's where the...
Okay, let's see if we can't settle this piece of it at least, because I remember receiving an email with some attachments to it, which I forwarded to you. We all know and love our 365 email system around here. I don't know if that included all of the applications with the designs. Did you receive that?
This was from that email, Tom.
That was what we got in the email.
I pulled that right off the email. Yes, sir.
Let's move this one along. We need to get our hands on what it was we sent in. Okay, but that's what needs to happen. Let's get hold of Mike. Okay. Let's make sure we get that one so we can at least. It's not that we don't want the money. We got to know what it was we applied.
There's nothing here the scope of the project's not changed. I'm assuming that they didn't show this thing being filled with beach club.
I have no idea.
But
Again,
you can't assume.
How can I assume?
We don't know.
How can we
Let's
agree?
look at it.
Well, that's what he said.
What I just said.
Asking
That's what I
for
just
it.
said.
Tom's saying we need to see it. We knew they were going to do it
We knew
because
they
they
were
talked
doing
about
it.
it at that big meeting.
Right?
We knew they were going to do it. Okay, so let's move that one. Okay, does that? If you're done, I'm not done on this one.
Well, it's your meeting. I'm
Before
just
you go to the dishes. Okay. Obviously, there's been, it's one of my favorite sayings, a tremendous amount of energy around this particular situation. I was asked to look into it. I've had numerous phone conversations with various people, not the least of which was the gentleman who was attending the meeting last week for me. obviously there is I'm disappointed because we've had 2.5 years of these groups finding a way to work together to build a synergy, which I'm going to be talking about later for us to have, and this thing doesn't need to go off the rails. We do need to do, and I was a little disappointed, Bob, that you weren't able to attend the meeting on Monday to at least communicate back and forth as to what was going on. I look at the budget, as I mentioned, I saw what's there. I hear that representatives of all three sports were there. They cooperated on the plan, agreed to what was going on. Nothing was said. But the fact is, we've got something off the rails here. And what I would like to have, but number one, I think this group needs to meet again. That's a call for us to do that. But only after you've had a chance to sit down with the platform tennis group and talk through where we are. Because obviously, the emails we got over the weekend, the energy around it, there is a belief that the train went off the track. And obviously, there was leadership there representing that group, and something happened. But rather than sitting here doing this, pointing at each other, I would like for that group to have a session with you and Sonia, walk through what is there, what isn't there, and then I'm going to be calling later this week, tonight in this meeting anyway, for a special meeting next week for the board, for us to put on the agenda of that meeting next Wednesday a discussion of where we are with this, because this has to move along. There is a commitment to getting pickleball courts built so that we can unpaint the tennis courts so that they're used in the winter. At the same time, there have been understandings, long-standing understanding, as to what was going to happen for all three sports. And unfortunately, it went off the track. I think they made the right decision in not putting this package in our packet last Friday and asking for us to vote on it today. Because obviously, we got a train off the track. But so I will look for that group to meet with you. I'm going to call for a meeting next Saturday, next Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. There are 3 topics at that meeting, one of which is going to be this, one of which is going to be the objectives for our general manager for this current year, and then a working closed session for us to evaluate our general manager for the past year, which I'm getting from everybody on that. So we will meet next Wednesday unless I hear a huge objection. We've got people going out of town. We could do it Tuesday as opposed to Wednesday if that's better. Either day. Which does Wednesday work for everybody or not?
I know.
Is that's not good for you?
No, and I didn't bring my calendar, so just pick a date and I'll try.
Is Tuesday okay?
I don't know. I got to check.
What are the 3 items?
It's the current objectives for this current year, which we have to finish up. Go with the existing.
Evaluation.
And the evaluation is after and this topic. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we got to get to the county and get this thing moving.
Well, tennis would be 12.
No, that's open. No. I mean, in fact, the objectives is in an open session. The tennis discussion is an open session. With the evaluation of the general manager is in a closed session for personal issue. Any objections to that next? Is Tuesday better?
I don't know.
I don't pay either day.
I can let you know tonight. I mean, I can
All
call
right,
you.
let me know tonight. It'll either be Tuesday or Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Right.
So settle that. Again, that puts a timeline on having the session to talk through things so that we can get a plan that truly is supported by the 3 sports. Because quite frankly, I don't want to end up with something that people can't support. That wasn't the purpose of the last 2.5 years. So, and that's kind of where I am on this before we move on. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think next Wednesday, Tuesday, week next Wednesday, just absolutely not talking about this tennis thing. We need a master plan. Without a master plan, we could do something in September that we would absolutely wreck in 6 months.
When you're referring to a master plan, I'm assuming you're referring to what was on the screen.
No, I don't know what that is. I can't read it. You know,
Plan of the whole.
Talking about the
a complex.
entire
I want to
campus.
know about
The
8
rackets.
pickleball courts and 2 platform courts. I want to know about what we're going to do with it now
Talking
until
about
the
rackets.
end.
From south entry, north entry to the point.
We've got stuff in the CIP, CPI, whatever you want to call it, rack and stack for the next 3 years.
Well, that has,
What's the
I'm
goal?
sorry, guys, we're not going to derail three teams working together very nicely for 2.5 years to try to figure this out. We're not going to derail this entire thing.
Derail what? We just started talking about it 25
No,
minutes
they
ago.
didn't. Their proposal can come to us and we can review it.
Obviously, they're really clear on what they're talking about by the 9 emails I got this morning.
I think that makes sense. Okay.
I have a question about this proposal that was supposedly agreed upon by several of the leadership.
Not supposedly,
It was, okay, agreed upon by several of the leadership. It included the 2 paddles, and it included the 8 pick.
No, ma'am.
No,
No.
it just included the 8 pick.
Correct. Only kickball court.
Okay,
Correct.
all right. The 2 paddles showing there are future.
Future.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Let's move on to drainage. At least that's what's the next slide in my hand.
Okay, drainage. We had a meeting recently with the drainage group. Jack attended. This was actually.
By the way, you handled that very well. I want
Oh,
to compliment
thank
you publicly.
Thank you. We discussed some minutes from the previous meeting. We went through a lot of different areas on drainage. Where we are had a discussion around the room from different players that had some different input. Bottom line, 2 things I want to make sure I brought to the board. One is Commissioner Bunning, Bobby Shockley at the county, Eddie Wells, and I are going to be looking at 2 of the hot spots. St. Mark's, where St. Mark's and everything drains from there and stops instead of crossing over, which is right over here. The other one was Pinehurst. There are 2 areas that create a backup. And so we went through that in some great detail. Commissioner Bunning felt that the plan, his words, relatively easy fix. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what that relatively easy fix is going to be for both. It's something everyone's looked at for a couple of years, but we're taking a look at that, and in the next couple of weeks, that's going to be a priority for the 4 of us, and then we're going to schedule another drainage meeting with the potential solutions and talk about that with this particular group. Okay? The new drainage crew, and this is just to update the board, are up and running. Here's just some quick slides. They've been going through section by section and mapping out every part of the sections, okay? And they're identifying every ditch, every stormwater management area in each section, taking pictures of it, putting it on the spreadsheet. Some of it is manual cut, some is equipment cut, some is a combination. Some of it is, and you'll notice this, it's been very dry in this particular area. Even though it's dry, it still holds moisture, so when the equipment goes through, it creates some issues there. They're identifying everything with their drainage system as kind of the first steps to making it well. The other thing is there are areas within the community, and I put a couple up here, where the homeowners maintain it. We've identified those areas as well. We'll still check on them, but we're just kind of doing our checks and balances. First way of solving any of these issues is identifying what we have. Second thing that's occurring is all of the ditches and swales are being cut, either by hand or by mower or both. The next thing that's going to cut, and we've received, and I think you all have seen them, some people have been upset that we're clearing ditches that they'd rather have the whatever is in the ditch to give a break between them and their neighbors. So it really becomes a no-win. Either you leave it or you don't. We're after it because that's what we're wanting to have done. So it's getting cleaned up. Next stage, once all the ditches are cut, mowed, that is going back through and actually bringing the equipment in to cut trees. Some of them have trees over it, some of the larger pieces. We're going to backtrack and try to get those tackled as well. So it's going to be, remember, 70 miles of roads gives you about 140 miles plus of drainage ditches when you look at ditch on both sides of the roads. A lot of work, but the team's at it. We have our new truck in, we have our crew in, we have the sewer machine, so everything's moving right along there. Jack, did you want to add, was there anything you wanted to add about that meeting or about anything we talked about?
No. I did take some copious notes, and what I'll do is I'll get them typed up, and Bob and the committee reviews them, and then I'll put them in your packet so you know what's going on.
Thank you. Okay. Next topic I want to cover is CPI. This was the hot one that the board asked me to go back and take a look at and go through. Here are the steps I occurred between last month. This review went back over Resolution M01 and the declarations and the DRs, declarations of restrictions. Meetings with Joe, as well as discussions with Chris Woodley. Here are some of the things that I want to make sure I distribute. We'll start with M01. I'm going to point out a couple of things here that I think are going to be helpful for us as we move forward. You don't need this, do you, Marty? You know you already have a copy.
Oh, I did. Unless you changed.
I'll do that. Yeah, I changed it for you. Okay, let's start. M01. I'm going to start with the repeat violations because that was a hot topic. What do we do when someone complies out 2 months later, they're right back for the same thing? They comply out as soon as the letter regimen, just before we go to the attorney. We go through the letter. There's a process we're required to follow, which is outlined here. And then just before it goes to attorney, they comply out. Okay, so that's one of the things the board asked me to look.
Just so people understand, comply out means they fix the problem.
They fix the violation. And then it starts to build back up, whatever that violation may be. One of the things that we have underutilized, and one of the intents to expedite this process, is there was something on page 2, section 5, under definitions, fast track violations. Okay? This repeat violations or concurrent multiple violations, okay, can be considered under the fast track. Okay, which means if you go back to page 3, turn to the next page, item 8 explains the procedures. Instead of starting over with the process, if someone continues to play that game of fix it and then we have to come catch you again, if we find it in the same violation as occurred, we can immediately send the certified letter, forget the multiple letters and phone calls, send the certified letter. It needs to be fixed right away. And if it's not fixed, okay, that's when it can immediately come to board action. And then we can send it to the attorney. Okay, so the fast track will help close that loop on the repeat violators. Any questions about how fast track? And I gave you, it's in here. I mean, it's spelled out. They're the highlights.
Yes, I do have a question. Operationally, Bob, are you intending to keep track of a watch list, I will call it, so that when our people are driving down the street, they know that someone has violated 1 or 2 times already, and as they drive by, they look over and see. Because obviously I'm suggesting we do this. Having to have the next door neighbor complain again, I'm not blaming you, but I'm just saying having to have the next door neighbor have to complain again because something wasn't, that they're violating again. We've got some perpetual violators here that I think we would operationally be perfectly within our rights to have a watch list created for those that are, part of this fast track. Now, not somebody who's, I'm just throwing this out. It's not somebody who's violated once. But, you get somebody who's violated, more, they come up and the second time they're fast tracked. To me, they ought to go on some kind of watch list. I don't know, but that's just my view.
This isn't exactly what I was looking for, Joe. This has been around since 2009.
Did you jump ahead of me?
Yeah, he's got more.
Well, this fast track is we got.
Let's get to it. Go ahead.
Well, if I may, I agree with you, Tom, and I'd like to see it become almost institutionalized in terms of format coming back to this committee to let our folks know out there who are concerned about their neighborhoods that we are concerned also, and we're tracking this stuff. And I would like to work out some sort of a system or have it become part of a system where we are continually updated with these kinds of things. I think it's healthy, and I think it's the light on it cleans it up.
Bob, keep going. You may have already solved that problem, but it's good.
No, I don't. I had no intent. The next two slides aren't going to show. We didn't intend to create a watch list. If someone has a violation, does that mean we have to? They've cleared it out, so we need to check on that property.
I think we can make a discussion that basically says that if you ended up on the fast track, meaning you violated twice for the same thing, I see no reason in the world why this board wouldn't authorize you to have a watch list.
How do we solve Willow Way?
Well, let's just keep moving.
No, this is a perfect example. Two broke down junk Volkswagen buses, 2009. We sent them to court. They're there this morning.
Bob, keep going.
No,
If we don't handle it, we're done. We'll come back to it. Go.
Okay. Next thing, DRs, Declaration of Restrictions. This document, went back in great detail with as well to go over the areas, and it's highlighted in your packet for you, where we can take action under certain circumstances. We're aware of it, but this is part of what we looked into in detail and spoke with Joe Moore. Again, Joe was involved in this process. Start with, let's go to section 8. Well, you know what? I'll take it in order in my book because it's going to be easier to follow. They're a little out of order here, but page 7, section H, or item H, stripped down, partially wrecked, or junk motor vehicle, or a sizable part thereof shall be permitted to park. That's the area that whole paragraph covers what's allowed, not allowed. And talking with Joe about these vehicles, the challenge is going to be, are they junk or are they not? His recommendation for any of these is we just put the packet together, send it to him for action, let him take it before a judge. Judge has to make the determination. If it's junk, we can throw it out of it. That's the process. If you want to expedite those, that next step is to get our attorney to go to the judge to say, yes, they are junk vehicles. You can have them.
So it takes a judge.
That's personal property. The judge has to authorize us to go on and remove it.
Well, so that's an excellent solution.
So that's step 1. The next one on that page, and again, so we don't bounce around so that you can follow, item JKL, item L, lots, whether occupied or unoccupied. This is for the maintenance of the properties. Just let you know the items that we can look for. And then if you go to page 14, if we found that the property is not maintained to a proper standard, it can be brought to the board with a 2/3 vote. You just authorize us to go on and we can clean the property up. We've been doing some of that. We can just get more aggressive with it.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
What is the procedure? Do they physically call some of these people?
They do.
They do. All right. I was checking in one of the homes in our list later, and there was a call in from the son. They didn't get the name. They didn't follow up. So I'm another situation. The property is obviously listed as a sign on front. So following up, this is a major issue. We're all concerned about it. These are all our neighbors. I'm just concerned if the follow-up is as strong as the CPI.
Certified mail to the homeowners.
But a lot of times they're not being picked up.
Agreed. They're avoiding it.
So phone calls to me sometimes
Make
seem
phone
to make
calls.
more
Your
sense.
report every time I bring one to you says whether they were contacted by phone or not, whether they were reached or not, and what if we go through this every time. There's a step process we're required to follow, and phone calls are part of that. Absolutely. Now they're not all successful. I mean, if they're not.
I'm going to say I don't think it's successful. And there was an issue, like I said, I just checked on it, and that they talked to a family member, but didn't get a name or phone number. Now that to me is not professional. That's probably the correct. If I talk to somebody on the phone about an issue, I've got their name and phone number, so I can contact them back if I need to. So I'm just saying we need to be a little bit more aggressive. Yeah.
Did a certified mail receive precaution?
Okay. Go
Excuse
to,
me, excuse me.
yes, sir.
I have a question. These things have been around for a long time.
The violations or the DR?
No, the DRs
Yes, sir.
dated 1969.
Okay.
Okay, so that language has been there. What's been the reluctance to go do it? We're talking about now getting tough, getting aggressive. Why haven't we done that?
The last couple of years, Jeff, hasn't been a hard push. The violations, we're following the process. There's one broken piece we're about to get to where I think it stops. That's the one Joe and I talked about at length, and that's what you received via email Thursday or Friday last week to review. It gets to that attorney point, and then there's a number of things that go back and forth that, quite frankly, just haven't occurred.
Yeah, I saw that. There's something in there that needs to be changed. I think what we have to do at the start is I think we have to have a very strong resolve to get this crap fixed. Not necessarily as fast as we absolutely can, but as expeditiously as we do it, recognizing there's an element of fairness in here too. But if we don't have that as a start, then I'm afraid this will sit in. And I don't think the community wants that. I don't think this board wants that. And I think we really need to start there. We're going to get tough. We're going to fix it. And an interesting thing I think will happen. Okay, my crystal ball's broken, so I don't really know. But when you start to do things like that, and people see that you're actually going to do it, it has a cumulative effect, people, and you start to get better compliance. Okay, now it's not always super dramatic, but it helps because people see that if they leave it messy, somebody's going to come by, clean it, whether they like it or not, send them a bill, and go through the best process we can to collect it. And that's what we've got to start really doing. So I would kind of like to challenge us to start this with the notion that this is a serious problem. I think it can become non-problem or a very small problem, but only if we have the guts to go after people very toughly and in as public a way as it's appropriate. I don't want this to be done at the dead of night and lawn fairy cleans it up. I really want people to know this is what we're going to do. So I think we need to do that.
Page 8, and this deals with, in particular, the fire building that was burned out. That is the course of action we follow with the when we have a property that's the burnt property, as an example. All right, so I pointed out.
Actually, on page 8, that is what we're following on that one. We have, in fact,
we're already working
We're
on
already
it, but
doing
that
it.
was one of the
We've
ones you
already
asked me to look into,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm giving you. Okay, so we've gone through those two. The last piece, and you all had an email, by the way, I had printed some copies. You can't say I didn't give it to you. I printed it. You all get all the paper. The first thing I hear is I didn't see it.
get in trouble with the EPA.
I love true. This was what came from Joe Moore with his recommendation. I want to draw your attention to page 2. Okay. He gives an example, but the second from the last paragraph, basically what this is telling you is if we're following MO1, and Jeff, this goes to part of your point where it slows down, and both Joe Moore and Chris Woodley. I've spoken to both of them about this several times. One of the challenges is there's a lot of back and forth between the association, the member, and the attorney. What their recommendation is item 10 on MO1 to actually allow us, once the board votes, to send it to the attorney. The attorney can then continue the process till it's rectified, which means they send their 15-day letter. If nothing happens, they then petition so they can take it to the judge for action without going back and forth with us. And that was Joe's recommendation of how we can expedite this process. When I looked at it, and it's almost fast-tracking the attorney, much like our fast-track, just fast-tracks with them. We're not just telling them to send a letter. We're telling them to get the problem resolved that the association resources could not. So now we're turning it over to you for legal action to get it resolved, whatever that may be. In the case of the burnout house, contact the bank, because it's the situation, which we're already doing on that one. The junk vehicles, once we turn to them, they send a letter. If that doesn't rectify it, then we go ahead and have it moved on to the court. Yes, sir.
Marty, I guess. What's the spirit of this? What's the spirit of number 10? I mean, Marty, you follow me? You've been around the longest. Why would this be included back to 2009, number 10? It specifically says that any reaction that Bob gets or any legal action that is threatened, the owner has to be notified, and we have to know what his reaction is. What was the spirit of that?
I didn't vote for a silly motion in the first place. And every time we vote to send somebody to an attorney, I make a laughing joke. I hope it's not to send another letter. We ought to be sending these people, the attorney, to sue them to get this done. If M2 slows that down, Joe has finally answered the question. Throw it in the trash can and hire an attorney to go sue these people. You're going to have junk vehicles sitting on jacks from now until the cows come up.
Okay, so we don't know.
I don't know how it got it. It's gone.
Right? We just don't.
Okay, the reality is that we asked Bob 45 days ago to look at this entire process. None of us were happy with the achievement that was coming out of the processes we had. We kept being told we had all the processes we needed. In fact, what has been found out is that we have processes that are in the way of us solving the issue, moving people to the front of the line very quickly when they're violating more than once. I have some pet projects out there right now that I guarantee you I would vote in a heartbeat to get the court, get the lawyer, get the court, get the ruling, tow the car. Enough. The regulations we have clearly state that the car has to be operational as well. Cars on jacks are not operational. It's time for us to take advantage of this. But Joe is pointing out a very legitimate issue. We have a policy, one, that clearly states any further legal action shall not be initiated until the board notified the next step needs to be done. Meaning it takes weeks and weeks of follow-up and coming back to us. I fully endorse the idea that when this board of directors or any board in the future sends something to them, get them to court as fast as possible. And get the court, give us the right to do whatever it is we need to do. Means we got to change this.
But I'm not sure we do. Can I read you the minutes from the meeting when Joe was here? 70 Cresthaven. Clark moved to find the owner in continuing violation and have the attorney obtain an injunction. It doesn't say anything about exchange postcards or remember his birthday with a pretty note card. It says get an injunction. That was passed unanimously. Here's another one. Bramblewood, Terry moved, find the owner in continuing violation. Have Moore's office create a plan of action.
You can read from the history book all you want, Marty, and I don't disagree. You
doing
and I are not disagreeing with each
right.
other, but MO1 clearly says the board and or GM goes to the legal counsel, may request our legal counsel to send a letter in an attempt to get board action, further legal action shall not be initiated.
We haven't.
We instituted that. And it's clear that we now have found a pothole in the process. Our legal team apparently was waiting for us to come back again. You and I aren't in disagreement here.
Do we have the first reading right now to get rid of MO1?
But,
You know,
could I make a couple?
we don't need to do
Include
that.
a couple quick suggestions. Okay, A, board give me the ability to move, if it goes to the attorney, at least for the next 6 months, let's try it. You can vote to do that. Paragraph 10 of MO1, someone can make a motion to say, hey, when it gets to attorney, let the attorney follow the entire process. That was Joe's recommendation, said it would be clean and neat. I have given you what I just handed while you all were talking. These are the ones that have been lingering for a while. They've been back and forth. And what we did was, sorry that it's a little crude and it's not printed up as clean as it could be, but you mentioned two of them that were on there, Marty. The recommendation is the yellow ones that we go ahead and give the attorney the go ahead on all of these to do. You see, they've done their letters and everything else. File suit at the courthouse. And if you all agree to do that, that's the next step with those. The red are ones where we believe we could go on and clean the properties. There's only 3 of those. So those 3 we're recommending, give us the go-ahead, we'll go get them cleaned up. I mean, we went and looked at everything that was out there and tried to give you a consolidated, which I believe is what you were asking for. Here's the course of action I recommend you allow us to do. We'll get them cleaned up.
This has Cape Town, Moonraker, Battersea Road, Brookton Lanes, Western, Nottingham, and Willow Way.
Doesn't have Battersea. This is all cleanup property.
No, Battersea, right?
I thought the red marks, the red marks are
What about
all.
the yellow?
Red are cleaned up.
Yellow is-
Yellow
that's
or
good.
attorney file suit.
Yellow says, let's go to court.
I don't see anything June way.
Down the bottom.
Juneway, we went back and looked. The process is, we're still early in that particular process and document.
Early, the guy had complaints over a year old.
You asked me to bring this. I'm not going to argue the facts. I'm giving you what our attorney has, what their recommendation is, what we can do to expedite. You all can decide what you want to do with it. I believe this will expedite the process and get the properties cleaned up. And I'm with you. I want them cleaned up. It helps us all if we do it. But I need board authority to do so.
Well, let's talk about Juneway for a second, just to make sure we're clear. Juneway be re-inspected and make it to the ARC meeting?
There's 2 June.
I know there's 2. Can the Juneway, that is the re-inspect, make it for the August meeting of the ARC? The bottom one on
I'm
the
sorry,
page.
what?
Can the bottom one on the page make it to the August 5th meeting for the ARC? Okay.
So both June ways.
That both Juneways can be at the ARC on August 5th. Depending on what the ARC does on August 5th, we may call a special meeting in order for us to take action ourselves. Okay?
But can I say, on these, if we don't have actual package, I don't blank vote any. That's way beyond. And I got to eyeball these before I vote on them. That's where the DRs are set up.
That's part of the go back and look again, go back to the attorney, go back and look again. That's
Okay.
exactly. Okay, well, that's how the
Take
attorney,
take
that's how the
MO1
attorney
and
explained it
trash.
to me, and that's why I just shared with you.
I don't care a thing about MO1, and you can put that in front page of the paper. I care about our DRs, and our DRs say I'm responsible to look at that property.
Okay.
If I wasn't responsible, you just give the keys to
But
the
Marty, I don't think anyone's disagreeing. They would all look at the property.
We can't just
We're
do it
meeting
all.
next week. Right?
Yes, we
Are we
are.
meeting next week?
We are.
So
Yeah.
do you have time between now and next week? to
No,
do
because
this?
I don't even have a package on. I know nothing about
They've
it.
been provided to the board
Yeah.
in the past, because they wouldn't be on that list if they had not been provided.
Okay, I'll look through what I.
Well, no. If you want me to regenerate all of these packets and disseminate them, I can do that. I'm
One
trying
of
to
these
be
is going to
responsible.
foreclosure.
I'm sorry?
One of these just went foreclosure week a month ago. Go on.
In the words of somebody, it's time for action. Somebody make a motion to go to court on these yellow ones. Somebody
Well-
make that motion.
No, you don't have the proper stuff.
I'm calling for a motion, or I'll make it myself.
Go ahead.
It's time to move this stuff, folks.
You
Come
don't even
on.
know what you're moving on.
Well, yeah, I do. I've been to 52 Battersea many times.
Oh, I have.
Well,
Enough. Yes.
Well,
Battersea, I vote
you
yes.
know,
I'm not gonna blame
Stop now.
so in a way, I agree with Marty. In some respects, we have seen all the problems, but to have them presented to us in a comprehensive list like this, before we make this vote, do this. If somebody's uncomfortable not having that information in front of them in order to make that decision, because some of these decisions were made a long time ago, on these properties for quite some time. If somebody's uncomfortable doing that, then I'm not sure forcing the issue is the correct thing to do. We have a week between now and our next meeting. If Bob wants to get Marty what he needs, or Marty wants to get, I know Marty has everything.
I never looked at 61 Moonbreaker Road, Clark Street. Never.
You know, so
Never. Was that presented to us in recent history?
All right, let's
Oh,
see.
no, it's 9/2011. I wasn't even on the board.
They're still in violation. We validated all
I
of
wasn't even on
them.
the board, for God's sake. I can't.
Okay, here's what, you all have to direct me what to do. Your last meeting says expedite, get me the list, get it done. I've done that. It's up to you all to take the next step. If you want me to reproduce all the information on all of these, we can certainly have that for the board. It's going to create, it's going to take a few days to pull it all together, but we can do so if that's what you would like to do.
First three of these are more than 2.5.
All right. Sharon.
Yes, I just have a question. The letter from Joe Moore, which will deal with number 10 legal action.
Yes,
Which,
ma'am.
if I heard you correctly, you're suggesting that we just for perhaps a trial period give him authority to do that without changing the entire MO.
Joe's recommendation, and I concur, based on the board wanting to get these done, we have to expedite. So Joe said, if you give me the go-ahead to take action as your attorney, we will finish the process and get it rectified. That's what and I concur with that. If it's the board's desire to move forward and get these accomplished as quickly as possible, that will be accurate.
And at what stage do you want that? When we reviewed, like we have 3 today that we reviewed, is that the point that we would say we authorize him to go ahead and do what he needs to do to get this dealt with?
Again, if you're dealing with a resolution, the board has to take action. If you want to comply with it, not comply with it, change it, not change it.
Let me put it in English. You have to comply with this MO. One, you have to comply with, unless you change it, you just can't arbitrarily, willy-nilly say, okay, well, we're going to ignore paragraph 10 because it's going to expedite the situation. This has got to go, or it has to be discussed and changed.
All right, enough of this. This is hurry up and wait, hurry up and stop.
No, it is not hurry up and wait, Tom.
Next Wednesday, I want a package on every one of these things that's on this page. It's going on the agenda next Wednesday for us to vote on these. We have to vote to look at MO1. We're going to do that at that meeting as
Right.
well.
Now you're talking.
Enough is enough. We asked for a faster movement. You gave it to us. We're diddling around up here.
No, we are
Wait a
not.
minute. He
Tom,
gave
we
us
are
these
not.
are 2.5 years old.
Tom, we are not
You gonna
doing.
blame me for
I'm
that?
not blaming you.
Tom,
Time for action, please.
Tom, we are not dillying around. We are doing this the correct way.
Robert?
Whether you want to see it that way or not, we're doing it the correct way. If we have an object in front of us that has to be removed, we should remove it. Period.
Amen.
Robert, be moved. Going on the agenda for next Wednesday.
For clarity purpose, I just want clarity for staff time. You'd like a pack each of them.
No, I'd like the packages for the ones I've not seen, and that would be any of them that are more than 2 years old.
Sorry, I can't pick and choose what you
And I
have.
need them in time to look at them
Yeah.
before the vote.
yeah,
But here's what I'm going to say. I can't tell
I'll
you.
get them. Can I just go by ECC notation? Is that all right with you?
You absolutely could, but if everyone needs to see
I
them,
would like
why
to see
don't
it.
Get it for everybody.
Get them for everybody, please.
How about if I print new packets on those that are in your hand for all of you, and we'll do it as quickly as we can.
Thank you.
If I get it before Wednesday of next week, I'll have it to you before Wednesday of next week on each of those. Is that fair?
in the meantime, Marty,
You got the
you'll
address.
be able to go and
soon as you can.
Okay, financials. And is Pete Gobsack still in the room, or do we wear him out? Okay. All right, financials. There seems to be a lot of questions about whether we received financials in the previous or at the end of the year or not. You did. Your controllers are your financials. Tom asked me to reproduce those and put them in your packet. In addition to that, as Pete Gobsack, our assistant treasurer, he's intimately involved in all these as well. I asked him to look at the slides presentation we did for last year's board meeting, the August board meeting. We've done that, pulled out 2 slides, which kind of encapsulate the financials for the year, and then I'll cover June's financials and answer any questions. Pete, you want to cover those?
Sure. And it's only 2. These numbers reflect updated numbers from what has previously been distributed in the controller's report, which went to the directors and others around the middle of May, maybe May 17th, something like that. So you've already received the controller's report, and those numbers were unaudited, subject to year-end adjustments, not just adjustments resulting from the audit, but also year-end closing adjustments, if you will, which is standard. In the meantime, we've had in addition to the controller's report, the treasurer's report, which has appeared in the summer edition of the Ocean Pines report, and commentary of the treasurer is in there, together with the summary financial statements in that packet. Those were, again, the unaudited numbers. The audit has been completed, the field work. The financials are being processed now to be finalized, but they're not yet finalized. But nonetheless, the numbers are solid. So what you see here, 2 slides. One is this one, a summary, and the next one will include the detail of the amenities. What was reported earlier in the controller's report, those of you who still have it, was that the year ended up positive to the budget by $14,687. This varies from that by $59. So the final number here, the operating, it's not capital, it's not some other things, but the operating budget in the lower right-hand corner, $14,746. So, a lot of year-end closing adjustments, some went up, some went down. The most noteworthy change between what was reported previously as unaudited and these numbers has to do with the amenities. The amenity performance here is a little better than what was reported initially because, again, year-end closing adjustments. Some related to truing up revenue, some related to expenses. So I'll just take a moment to go through these and then the amenities again on the second slide. Can everybody hear me all right? Doing okay? All right. Budget, actual, and then the variance is the last column. Obviously, and this, as Bob suggested, this is something I developed a few years ago as a format for use at the annual meeting. And that had not previously been done, but I thought we ought to have something at the annual meeting, some financial, and so we presented this summary report. It includes some other schedules, but I've only picked out 2 for purposes of today. But it gives you a snapshot of the overall organization. Obviously, the most important, most significant expenditures relate to our police and fire. That's why they're categorized right up top there. Our budget for those 2 was $1,561,166. We actually achieved costs of $1,436,771. Therefore, $124,395 favorable in the for the year.
Can we ask you questions as you go along, or should
yes,
we wait?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Now, if I find I'm getting 6 or 7 questions,
No. It's
yeah,
good. It'll make sense.
Go ahead.
What makes up that 124,395? How do we get a positive variance in a cost center? What did that represent?
You spent less money than you budgeted.
I understand that. What does that 120 spent less represent? What do we spend less on? What does that represent?
You want the 16 categories that comprise it? Or
well, no, you don't have to get that detail, but, was there any
All right,
one item
yeah,
in there
Jack,
that
all right.
comprised
I got you.
50%.
I got your drift.
Okay.
I got your drift. Okay. In the police, very simply, the most significant variance that resulted in that 31,000 was additional grant received from the county. We received a $50,000 increase in funding from the county. That additional revenue was the majority of that favorable variance of 31,000. It was offset by some other expenses. Okay. In the case of the fire and EMS, that is very simply the true-up adjustment that was built into the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. Essentially, a couple of years ago.
True up. What, you lost it. What does true up mean?
A couple of years ago, the board, frankly, Tom Terry and I worked on it together, met multiple times with the fire department, ultimately with the board approving a modification of the existing agreement between Ocean Pines and the fire department. It gave them greater certainty and confidence in their funding, which they were pleased with. It also built into the agreement a provision that is the explanation for that variance right here. In the past, we have funded them based on their budgets. When their budgets were different from actual, as any organization is, there was no mechanism to true it up. So we built into the agreement with the fire department a true-up provision. Works both ways. If we fund them based on their budget, and they require more funds based on the actual results, we settle up with them the following year. Likewise, as happened this year, their results were favorable to their budget, not insignificant. We, Ocean Pines, then got, in essence, a refund based on the actual results. So when we go into the budget process with the fire department, neither party has to worry about whether somebody has a budget that's too aggressive or not aggressive enough. It will come back to be adjusted to the actual results. Wonderful provision, benefits both parties. I think we're very proud of the fact that we accomplished that. So that's what that's reflected. So this favorable budget variance for the fire department operations this year is very simply reflecting their positive results from the prior year's actual, which we now benefit and get, in essence, a refund by reducing our. So that's the provision in that agreement. Does that make sense? Okay. Public Works and Maintenance. I hope you're not going to ask me to explain the 5,000. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
All right, good. Recs and Parks, similar 5,000. Other is everything else except amenities. Again, the amenities give me the next slide. The 261,000 favorable variance for all other, we budgeted for all those other departments, and it's administration, general manager's office, finance, public relations, etc. Again, not the amenities and not the key departments which you see up there.
These are cost centers.
Cost centers. Okay? Now, as you all know, I think from covering the financials over the course of the year, certain positions were not filled, namely HR and IT, right? That explains about half of that 261,000 favorable variance. When you take into salaries, insurance, fringe benefits, taxes, and so on and so on, that's about 135,000 of that 261,000 favorable variance. There's also, it's both favorable and unfavorable. It's a favorable dollar variance. We had more interest charges, if you will, on delinquent accounts this year, by the tune of about $30,000. Other items in there, finance department itself had a favorable variance of, I guess, 23,000. General manager's office, 7,000. But also there's a $50,000 item in there for CPI. And that relates to both additional revenue, greater revenues than budgeted. Building activity is up. When people build houses or sell houses, resale certificates, we get revenue from that. And the activity has been higher than in recent years and higher than budgeted. So the combination of additional revenues above that which was budgeted for that kind of activity, as well as some expense reductions, resulted in CPI having a $50,000 favorable performance to budget this year. That, I think, explains about 240,000 of the 261,000. Okay? Now, let's move on to the amenities, which is the next page. We budgeted, you see the very last line there, 191,475 in column 1. That's the net effect of last year's budget and I emphasize budget, we actually not only did not achieve a profit, if you will, we actually had a loss, a net loss on all the performance of the amendment, $167,000. So the variance between what was budgeted as a profit, if you will, and what was incurred as a loss in the aggregate was $167,000. It was a variance of $359,000. Now, one by one, I've grouped these, obviously, with those in brackets up top and those without brackets down the bottom. As you can see, and I think anybody who's been paying attention to the financials, and I think the weekly publications and some that are monthly, every issue contains some financial information to both sides, month by month by month by month. Well, this is the 12-month cumulative total. And what you see is golf. I think its loss the prior year was $545,000. It was budgeted for $150,000 loss this year. Came in at $326,000. Yacht Club was budgeted at $105,000 loss. Actually achieved $189,000 loss. So it was $84,000 worth of budget. We all know the Yacht Club. In its final days, it was deteriorating. It had to be closed even before the intended closure date of it. And so there were consequences to the state of that building. We missed budget there by that amount. Aquatics, $119,000 was the amount budgeted. $194,000 was that actually achieved. The biggest variation in aquatics was membership, quite frankly. And that's although we're starting to see that turnaround in this current fiscal year. Don't forget what happened within this fiscal year. We had the pool closures at the Yacht Club last year. That impacted memberships. People delayed getting their aquatics memberships. They wanted to be certain that the pool was going to be open before they laid out their money to get the membership. In addition, the policy that changed a few years ago, we used to be on a May 1 anniversary date for all memberships. So if you came in June 1 with your money, you really only got 11 months, right? Now, it starts from the day you lay down your money. So what happened last year is people stood on the sidelines, waited to see what happened with the pools. They weren't there May the 1st. They waited. And they may have come in June or July. So we were deprived during this fiscal year of the revenue associated with that because of the delays, right? So it makes sense that we were off that year. Tennis is tennis, 11,000, 19,000. Now those that are profitable, can you not hear me?
Yeah.
No, you may not. So he's chairing the meeting. No, this is not my meeting, okay?
Okay.
But the public comments, you'll have that. Questions to be asked during public comments, sir? Okay? So we now move on to those that are profitable. And as you can see, those profits substantially offset the above items where we actually incur losses. We've always looked at it as a net sum game. But the marinas, again, were negatively impacted, again, by the Yacht Club situation last year. Remember, we had fuel tanks that weren't timely opened and so forth. So that impacted marina, the slips. Revenue from the slips was another factor in the performance last year of the marinas. The beach club is pretty close to budget, 5,000 variance. And the beach club parking continues to be sort of the cash cow around here, with $374,000 in profit against a $357 budgeted amount of profits. So all in all, these various and sundry revenues, 8 in total, produced a $167,897 loss for the year. Okay? And that's it. Questions from the board?
Yeah, and in the budget process, when you guys look at, let's pick on the beach club. The beach club was budgeted for $83,000.
No, that's a net, Jack. That's a net.
Okay.
Okay.
And your actual was $78,049. Is that correct?
Correct.
So when you go through the budget process, do you still take the same aggressive approach on the revenue side? Or do you look at these numbers and mitigate your projections in terms of revenue? How do you use these numbers when you go through the budget process, like we went through for 1450.
I'm not sure who you mean by you in your sentence.
Well, I mean the administration. I mean, the budget is.
I'm not the administration.
The budget is put together by the. Yeah, but you help out.
I help them.
Yeah. The budget is put together by the administration, and it's a simple question. You take past performance into consideration when you budget on the revenue side.
Jack, I would say that like any operation, business nature or any other nature, takes into account a lot of factors when it sets its budget. Those factors obviously include, very, very importantly, prior history, also includes economic trends, also includes demographic changes. You can list probably 25 factors that you have to take into account. You can't develop a mathematical model to say plug it into the computer and spit out based on last year what next year's budget ought to be. It's forecasting, it's budgeting, but you have to take into account every single factor that you're aware of. In this particular case, and you're always going to face the unknown. A closure of a facility, a repair of a facility, a damaged drainage system to a golf sprinkler system, pool crack, any number of things. But when you set the budget, you don't know those things. So no budget is ever going to be achieved 100%. Now what you're looking at up there is a net number. Now I've proposed to only cover it in summary fashion. So I'm not highlighting revenues or categories of revenue. Just take aquatics, for example. Aquatics missed its budget by $74,000. The revenue, as I suggested earlier, was impacted negatively in several areas, but impacted positively in other areas. For example, the swim lessons. We have a new aquatics instructor, not direct instructor, but director, and we've seen a real positive trend in that. The membership obviously was impacted, as I suggested earlier. So you can set the budget based on history and modify that based on new planned programs, for example. That's a good example. Rexton Parks, by the way, had some new innovative programs this coming year, and it was budgeted associated revenue. It didn't just rely on last year's revenue. So it's a whole bunch of things that go into the process. And in terms of what the general manager and the administration, he starts on this process in September, if I'm not mistaken, working with his, and I'm not part of it. I mean, this is, a management function. Bob is dealing as the general manager with his department heads, just like any organization does, Jack.
Well, I'm looking at these. You're right. I'm looking at these numbers, and
they're not.
I know, and I'm wondering if it would benefit us more and benefit the membership more to compare actual numbers rather than and the variance between the actual revenue from one year to the next, year after year after year, to see if we're on track by increasing our revenue, if we're on track maintaining our expense side in our cost centers. Would that be more valuable to a
Jack,
board?
let me just bring to your attention this. Right. This is the monthly controller report that all the directors get. I believe it's supposed to be there, occasionally late a couple days, 13 business days after the year end. In response to your question, you as a director and everybody at this table gets this monthly.
Right.
And what it shows is variations, not just in revenue and expenses, but every single category of revenue and expense. So you have received, over the course of this past year, 12 of these, Jack.
Right, but
and it shows not only the current month, but year to date.
But you also said that this is the format presentation to the general membership.
Yes.
At the meeting.
Yes.
At the general. Would it be beneficial to them to see the actual numbers and the variance associated with the actual numbers, be they positive or negative? It doesn't matter.
For every category?
Well, you could do it at a summary level, couldn't you?
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're doing it to budget, actual to budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you would do it to what?
Yeah. It's just a suggestion.
I'm sorry. What's the suggestion? Did we compare it to what?
To the previous year.
Previous year?
Mm-hmm. At the summary level.
I think we did that.
And show the variance.
I'm only giving 2 slides here, Jack.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's not the purpose of this meeting. I'm just trying to give you some highlights, okay? The actual financial package is about 50 pages. So y'all want 50 pages, that's fine. But the directors get this stuff, okay? In every category of expense and revenue, there's a comparison not only to the budgeted amount, but also to the prior year. There's also comparisons of year to date. Again, for every single line item as well. So I don't think the general public is clamoring to get all that detailed information. Anyway, Marty.
Two quick questions.
Sure.
First, and I'm guessing you know this, are we on track for our audited reports this weekend? I mean, they're due two weeks.
2 weeks before the annual meeting.
So that would be this weekend.
I hope so.
Okay, second question.
The answer is I believe so.
Yes.
I believe so.
Cool. Second question.
But I'm not going to come in Monday. Nobody's going to come in Sunday afternoon either. So probably be available Monday.
I might. Second question is, what was the cause of the 80% negative swing, the forecast numbers on February 22nd, to the numbers we're looking at now?
February, what's the relevance of February 22nd?
February 22nd, the board of directors were given a forecast of
Okay.
152,978. That's less than 3 months till we got this. I'm just wondering what bump in the road did we hit? What information did we not
I
know?
don't know. I was not involved in the development of the forecast.
Okay, I thought you were.
No.
Maybe Bobby
No,
can
it's
answer
not.
that.
Generally I can answer that each quarter, during my time associated with Ocean Pines, the general manager, via Bob or his predecessor, would forecast the balance of the fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
So you review the first quarter and project 9 months. Review the second quarter, 6 months, and project the next 6 months.
Just what he's referring to.
Right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it was off more than 80%.
Well, 80%, 80% of $100 is $80. So anyway.
But we're not talking 80%.
But we're a
talking
not-for-profit organization that budgets zero on the bottom line. Zero on the bottom line. So keep the percentage.
Let Bob answer. You're not
Bob would like to answer.
April is the month when everything is consolidated. Inventories, at all levels, and that's when you see the biggest adjustment is April, because you're wrapping up for year end. And the big impacts are inventories across public works, yacht club, beach club. Beach club's not as big, but yacht club is. That's when, if you notice, the last 3 years, that's when we've had our biggest adjustment, that April month.
surprise.
Because we're truing everything up and don't do inventories at that level until you get right down to the end of the year, and that's where you have the biggest adjustment.
It just makes it difficult for a board that's trying to approve a budget.
Well, no, actually,
budget's already approved at that point.
here's where I'll give you the other
the
side.
numbers were even worse for the report.
Here's where I'll give you the other side, though, Marty. When you say it's more difficult, the primary goal and objective, and if it changes, the board has to direct me on this, our bottom line should be zero. We budget for zero.
And
So
this
the
is
fact
close.
we're at $14,000, a slight positive variance, and I remind you, we continue to hit those marks. So what we do throughout the year is we're juggling all the pieces, what we call Ocean Pines, to get as close to zero at the end of the year that we possibly can. This, to me, in any financial world, is a huge achievement. We're within $14,000 of a budget for the operation. That's a damn good year.
Thank you.
$13 million. $14,000.
So we crafted a good budget and we hit the numbers.
Well, I just want to clarify what Jack was bringing up. In our budget process, in all our books for everything, we go back to 2009.
Right.
So we check every number, and during our budget process, we had questions. Why is this up a percentage? Why is this down a percentage? So we don't just take last year and say, we went back and we go back as far as 2009 and make a projection to try to even up the budget to what we're doing.
What Bill is referring to here is this is the budget finding. It goes initially to the Budget and Finance Committee and then to the board. And the board and the Budget Committee have extensive meetings and discussions on this. I'm going to guess a minimum of 50 hours devoted. But in any event, what Bill Cordwell is pointing out here, in response to Jack's question, every single line item is included in there, plus supporting schedule to even give the details within a particular line. So, for example, printing might be a single line item. There'll be a schedule in there that shows what the printing costs are related to, what project, be it the annual report, be it this, be it that. There is so much information in there that is available to every single member of the board, as well as the Budget and Finance Committee, which does the pre-screening under the way we operate here in Ocean Pine. So by the time it gets to the board of directors members sit in on those, they can sit in. They're not part of the meeting per se with the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee, but they do a very good job of going through, and they're not reluctant to ask a question on any line item or anything that may be different from the prior year, or how come this and that. If any of you want to fill some time during the winter, come to one of those sessions, and you'll see minutia, but it's important stuff. Okay?
Thanks, Pete.
Anything else?
Yeah, one last comment as far as what Pete was talking about. That budget binder, by the way, as we're done going through it, the budget, finance, and ourselves, is also available for the public to see when we're done with that. I would just like to make a final comment on the fact that we are a zero target organization. Come in at 14,000. It's pretty phenomenal, and there's always a lot of energy around the amenities here and there and up and down. The reality is, I just did the math. That's $2, less than $2 a month worth of, in essence, subsidy that we're putting in an assessment we've already paid. So the reality is, things are going pretty well financially around here. There's one line item on there that obviously I'm paying a lot of attention to. That's another day for another discussion. I'm riding around with a golf cart to get my hint. Okay. Yes, sir. Keep going.
All right. Financials for the month of June. This is one of the things I want to make sure we covered. June looked actually very good. If you go through the numbers, some highlights I want to point out, and this is obviously we're closed out for April and now we're moving into this year. A couple of the areas that I've had questions about. First, let's start with aquatics and a controller's report. You'll see aquatics actually outperformed budget for the month of June by about $15,000. Extremely strong. 15 doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a very, very good. We're budgeted to lose about $25,000 for the month in aquatics, and it was closer to $9,000. Most of it was made up. The memberships are still down, but the other parts, swim classes, was a big part of it, and wages was a very big part. Two really nice things to see. So that was huge. Yacht Club for the month. Yacht Club ended up this month. A couple of highlights I want to point out. We had in revenue $303,000 at the Yacht Club month. Largest month. We tried to look back the last 12, 14, 15 years. I went through. That's bigger than July's usually our biggest month. It's bigger than any July we can find on record. So that's huge. That's a significant improvement over where we were. The bottom line for the month was we hit the budget. We're within $18,000 overall on a budget that was created, almost 18, 19 months ago for the club, which is very good. The one area that we were a little weak on at the Yacht Club, but we knew that. It happened. It'll happen a little bit more this month, and by August we'll start to tighten that up. Wages were up, so they were higher than budgeted. Interesting fact that our revenue was up by 23% over what was budgeted. Now remember, our budget was extremely aggressive. We exceeded that by 23%. Our wages were up by 23%. Just interesting number there. The other thing with the wages, two things at the club that knew we were going to be a little heavy on. There are two areas that we knew coming out of the gate. You think of it, it's a new club. We're going to have a startup period. Okay? So we took a hit in May because we were only open for about 9 days in May. Had a very strong time that we were open, but we took a hit. And as we rolled into June, continued with wages because we had a lot of training that we were hoping to have in the April timeframe, but the building wasn't ready for us, that we had to, as we opened, also pay people in for training. So training was huge, which impacted the bottom line. The second part of that is we overstaffed in several areas. The two biggest gripes we've had for years, and everyone can attest to it, consistently good food, and we think with Chef Tim and Chef Rob, what they're doing out in the kitchen, I've had the vast majority of white hair has been awesome, great. The only challenge we've had, we're having a little bit with the temperature of the food, and we're trying to dial in with the heat lamps to make that more efficient. We had waste in June because again, you're rolling out new product. If we didn't like it, it was interesting to watch. Tim didn't let things go out of the kitchen if they looked bad. I mean, I saw him throw trays away some days, and I'm just in panic mode, remembering what our numbers look like. We're always looking at food costs, but really, really focused on quality. That says a lot for him and what he's trying to make sure goes out of the kitchen. Secondly, the other hit we took, in addition to the inconsistent food, second hit we took was poor service. Well, David's really front-end loaded to have enough wait staff, servers in place, bus staff, bartenders in place to resolve those issues. The only area there that didn't forget the budget for me, but didn't perform well for us in June were the bars, because we were overloaded on that first floor bar. Just the bar's not big enough to support only one bar open. Now the Tiki bar is open, that relief valve has been set, which is what we had anticipated. So June for the Yacht Club actually was very, very strong, and very excited about that. Other areas, so the bottom line for the month of June was we were within $4,000 of budget. Pretty good. The loss we're trying to make up, we have accumulated about 65 in total year-to-date loss, and a lot of that was between the golf. Let me make sure I talk about golf as well, but between golf and Yacht Club with the startup, golf budgeted, and I've been looking real close at those numbers as well, because obviously golf's a big issue right now. Some real positives are rounds and revenue are up for golf. They didn't hit their budget, but they exceeded any of the previous years. So that's a positive sign. The challenge is May and June were their two most aggressive months of budgeting. 42%, 50%, or 51% is what they budgeted over previous year. Well, they hit about half again of what they budgeted. So there were 25% of what previous years were, but they didn't hit the real aggressive 42-50. The good part is July, August, and September, if you're looking at their numbers, they're much more conservative in their approach to their allocation of revenues. They're closer to 7, 8, 9, 10% for those months. So the opportunity for them, if they keep that 20 to 25% above what was budgeted number, which is what they hit the first 2 months, they'll then start to make up some of the hole they dug in May and June because they just over forecast. So that's actually positive, but they still have a lot of work to do there. The rest of them were pretty much on. Everything else fell in. Overall, bottom line for the month, the association was $229 within budget. $229. I mean, you can't get any closer than. Questions on that?
Have you included the Marine in with Yacht Club?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's operated out of that area now. Anybody? Once, twice, sold?
Okay, hold on before you disappear.
I have one Yacht Club sheet to give you other than that.
What?
I have one more sheet to give you.
Oh, go ahead. All right.
It's not budget related. It's yours to stay on financial. Print it as big as we could, the dashboard. Big. Again, these are the Yacht Club numbers for the construction of the project, providing you the dashboard. One of the reasons you didn't get last month, and there seems to be a lot of stir about it, we didn't have any new numbers. The only additional number we had last month that validate was part of the draw that we paid to Harkins, which was $100,000. Other than that, there were no updates. We've really been dialing in the last couple of weeks. Now, project's not completed, fully complete yet, and you'll see we've given you greens and reds and color-coded, so it should make it relatively simple, but there's a lot of material. So over the next week or two, as you go through it, if you have questions, shoot me an email or give me a call. There's no way you're going to be able to look at it all right now. Bottom line is we're still have a positive 6,314 with all of our numbers as conservative as we could be. We try to go high on what everything cost us, and most of these are already paid now. Okay, so you have that to work with. That's all I have now.
Okay. One other thing, having to Marty, we'll insert the update on the special meetings we had at this point.
You want me to do that?
Yeah.
Under minutes, although I don't have the minutes, we're winging this. June 27th, there was a closed meeting. Purpose of that meeting was a discussion of how to protect membership equity in a house going to foreclosure by others. There was a vote at that meeting. Stop me if I start saying something I shouldn't say. There was a vote at that meeting to enter into the fray, and Ocean Pines did indeed purchase that property at a foreclosure sale. On July, that's pretty much it, right? July 9th, another closed session meeting on the same subject, and the vote at that meeting was to not enter into the fray because we didn't feel the equity justified the risk.
We just needed to get that into the record as to what happened in those sessions. Obviously, we're taking the next step in going after the money that's owed to this organization. And if I can paraphrase, if money is there, property is above water, it's not. There's an opportunity for us to effectively get our money back. We use some of the resources on our board and knowledge that is here, real estate, various other things. So we did make that one case. We did make that step. Next time we said no, it wasn't approved. Okay, just for clear up on the agenda, have we covered the process for derelict properties enough? Before I go to public comment, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Drainage?
Yes.
You're okay? And finally, yacht club. It's not final numbers because the dashboard.
I just on the yacht club, just a punch out. Where are we in the punch out? Are we still putting together a punch out list, or is that complete?
Oh, no, it's not.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So that wraps that up. All right.
If I call you off the record later, can you tell me how much we spent?
Yeah. There's a little green number at the bottom
That in there.
Okay. We're public comment. Okay.
Those
Wait a minute, let's get the microphone going here so everybody can hear.
Was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yell loud.
Norman, you're scary enough without yelling.
Testing. Green light is on, it's on.
You might have to talk right into it.
You're not the first person.
Testing.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. I don't have any chips in the game.
For the record, name and address, we all have to do that.
Norm Katz, 10 Holly. I don't have any chips in the game. I'm not trying to derail anything. This is just an observation. The presentation was made on the Franklin Creek complex for all of us. And the initial plan showed that the playground is going to be reduced in size, footprint by about 50%, relocate. And the second changeover was going to be relocated, the minor change. What I find is conspicuously missing the fact that people who use that playground is not part of the group who came up with that plan. And I don't think they're second-class citizens. Probably none of them here, because they're all out working, trying to make a living. But I think that it's out of line, I don't know how to put it. But I think that those people that are using that complex playground should be consulted by the board, give you some input before you make any decisions as to what changes you're going to make in that complex. Just my observation. Thank you.
Thank you. He stood up. Hang on a second. I'll get back to you.
Thank you. My name is Scotty Wheatley. I live at 84 Hingham Lane, and I'm vice president of the platform. And there's a few issues I think that need to be straightened out. And as Bob has said, our sport has really grown in the last 5 or 6 years. We've been after courts for at least 5 or 6 years, 2 more courts. But because of certain issues, we knew it wasn't in the budget, and we said, okay. Now, I have to reiterate on a few things that Bob has mentioned. Both Mike and I were very pleased to hear about the RAC committee. We thought it's a great idea. When we all sat down, we agreed that platform tennis and pickle should be have priority. A little bit more so to pickle because they didn't have courts. Although they ended up getting 4 courts on tennis, which annoyed quite a few of the tennis players. Now, just so you know, we had in the budget this year money for platform and pickle. Okay? Now, we had a meeting with Jerry Vito, which you weren't at, okay, to figure out how we were going to rearrange the courts and where we could put them and everything like that. With talking with Jerry, he said that the money is not there, and originally it was going to be 2 pickle platform courts and 4 pickle. That was the original plan. With Jerry's insight into the financial end of it, he said we couldn't afford to build those platform courts and the 4 pickleball courts with all the renovation that has to be done to the groundwork. So we had already put in for a grant, as you well know, $5,000, which has to be, they have to be shown that there's something being done before the end of April. Okay? What Mike and I did was to really help pickleball. And what we agreed to do was we knew that tennis wanted to get the lines off of their courts. So Mike and I agreed to give them 6 pickleball courts, but to pour our 2 pads, which we thought that would appease our membership, knowing that next year we'd have 2 more, right? That was, Jerry Vita was very receptive to that, okay? So the last meeting that Bob was at, when Bob turned around and said that we all agreed to the plan, right? And Mr. Terry, by the way, the wheels are not falling. When he said, do we agree to the plan, we looked at the plan. The platform courts were exactly where we wanted them. Okay? Yes, we agreed that the plan looks good. Dale asked it, okay, is everybody in agreement with the plan? Yes, we were. At that time, I said to Bob, are we getting, now all of a sudden it went from 6 pickleball courts to 8. My comment was, we are getting our platform pads, right? No, you're not. Now, I know Bob's got a big overall picture. We've been after these courts for a long time. We gave up quite a bit to give Pickle what they want. All we're asking for is to please keep us in mind and let us have our pads so that our membership knows that it's coming next year. Does any of the board have any questions?
One quick question. Is the size of the paddle, the size of the pickle, the same size?
Yes, they are. The same size. Okay.
We're going to stay on, Anna, we're going to stay on topic here, and when we're done with the paddle and tennis, we'll go. Is that fair? Okay.
My name is Michael Petito. I'm the president of Platform Tennis, 39 Newport Drive. Excuse me. I came in late, but I've been told that, Bob, you said you never got a copy of the grant letter. Well, I was told. I didn't hear you say that. That's what I have.
Okay, let's clean it up. What we need from you, Mike, is the actual application that we turned in.
I gave that.
I thought we did, but somehow it wasn't attached to the, this is what we talked about earlier. I thought I had received them from you and forwarded them to Bob. It's not in those emails. Somehow it wasn't attached. That's what we need, the application.
I will get that to you.
That's what we need.
Do you remember the letter, Bob?
I have the letter.
You have
I
the
showed
letter.
a picture of
You
the
need the
letter.
application.
Yeah, you did send me.
There is no application. That letter is the application. That letter, all we needed to do was outline what was needed. And that is the application.
Mike, it actually refers, you and I have talked about this, it refers to stipulations in the letter. I asked you clarification on the stipulations so I could better understand it. That's what I'm looking for.
The stipulations were just to abide by what was in that letter. That's it.
Okay, let me make sure we're not talking past each other. This is critical. There was no design sent in as part of the application because the wording in the letter implies that there was some kind of design that was sent with it as to what was, I'm just telling you it does. It implies that there's a design or a plan or something that went with it. If you're telling me that was the whole thing you sent, then we've got everything we sent. Their letter back, the rules imply that there's some kind of, as long as it's built to what we proposed. If there was no design set, then there wasn't one. That's all.
Well, it has to be built according to ABTA regulations, just like the course we have.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, that's pretty simple.
Okay. Well, you know more about this than we do. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Yep. Anna, I'll get to you. Trust me, I'm going to get there. I'm just going to stay on topic. Right.
Hi, my name's Marie Lenzinski, and I kind of play all three sports. I play pickle, I play paddle, and I play tennis, and I love them all.
Marie, your address for that.
But I'm looking at the fair perspective on this.
We need your address.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm at 22 Castle Drive.
Okay, go ahead.
I look at the fair perspective on this, and I take people at their word. And we have, as the paddle group, went the path that we were supposed to go. And we were granted the money. The money was granted. We are going to get your two paddle golf courts. Communication is a difficult thing. Call Verizon. They're a communication giant. So I think that all three sports have got to find a way to come together. But in fairness, if you look at our membership and you look at the money we brought in and you look at our needs, we need more than pickle and tennis. Because what's going to happen is tennis will be over pretty much. It'll go to the hard court. Pickleball will go into the community center, right? Paddle plays all year long. We only have 4 courts. We are overwhelmed. We do not have room to play. We can't go in the community center when it rains. We pay more than pickle, but we only get, we don't get an indoor court. That's nice. And I love it because I go in there and play in the winter. But I think communication is broken down somewhere. The bottom line is paddle does deserve first priority. I like the other speaker.
Hi, my name's Jim Freeman. I live at 60 Boston Drive. Some of my fellow officers here appreciate me. I've been around for a while, and I was the officer about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'd like you to be very clear on this one thing, is that years and years we worked to get the money, the budget for platform tennis, and in a meeting with Sonia Bounds, she told me that $135,000 had been put in the budget, use of building 2 paddle ball courts. No mention of pickle. Pickle wasn't even around. Okay? So what happened in the meantime to our $135,000, I don't know. We do not object to Mr. Thompson's plan. We're all for it. Build 8 pickleball. Give the tennis a paintbrush, let them paint the lines off. But we deserve 2 pickleball courts paddleball courts, before they get their pickleball. And that was the deal. I don't understand why it's being back.
Just for clarification, so everybody, just for clarification, the budget books refer to both paddleball courts and pickleball courts being built with the 135. They're both in there, but the two pickleball courts are in. Go ahead. Paddle, excuse me.
Paddle, 4 points.
My name is Judy Freeman, 60 Boston Drive. I just want to say to the board, I'm so impressed with you. You guys, you got back to us right away, and you were awesome, and I respect you for that. Nobody ignored us and did not feel like nobody was listening, and so thank you, no matter what, thank you. But what I wanted to say was, a lot of it is about the RAC committee and our voice. What happened was, we don't even have a RAC committee, and so all this came out of the tennis advisory committee, and so decisions were made there. But if we really truly mean what we say, and we're going to come up and come up with a solution as a group, well, we don't even have a committee. So how can we say that we agreed and it was decided if there is no existence of a RAC advisory committee yet? So, and I have to say, we've made over $100,000 for the last 10 years. So we've earned a lot of money, and we're just asking for what we feel like we really worked hard at. And we are trying to, we're a business, we're a small business, and we make lots of money for you. So I think, $100,000 over 10 years, that's not a bad profit. And I'm hoping that the public and that you have an awesome, I'm just hoping that see that we get our input, and it's a fair thing to give us what we were promised. Thank you.
Anyone else for the bracket sports?
My name is Dale Ash, 45 Sundial Circle. I'm chair of the Tennis Advisory Committee. First, I'd like to call your attention to recommendations that were made to the board in December. And they were made individually. This wasn't a blanket email. But each of the members who were on the board at that time received an email message from me and a reply. Just excerpting from Section 5 on the recommendations for board action. The Tennis Advisory Committee strongly recommends CIP funding in FY 2015 for the construction of 4 pickleball courts and, as funding permits, 2 flat courts. The recommendation goes on to talk about why pickleball is most compelling. And in addition, how the use of 2 courts, 2 tennis courts that have been made into multi-use courts has created a problem for tennis and will present major problems come winter. Let me just excerpt briefly from that. Soon freezing temperatures will force the 8 hard-true courts to close until the spring, and tennis players will descend on the hard courts. There are many more tennis players from December to April who want to play than there are hard courts to accommodate. The
Who plays in the winter?
Well, apparently you haven't been around. About 25 to 35 feet.
Let's all be respectful of the speaker, please. Thank you.
I'd like to affirm what Bob Thompson has said. His reference to multiple meetings that go back more than about a year. Ones with Bob Thompson, as well as meetings of this adjunct committee made up of Mike Tito and Scotty Wheatley, and initially Jim Freeman from Platform, of the pickleball leadership, Julie Wolf and Frank Kramer, and from tennis, John McNulty, the prospective chair of the new Racket Sports Advisory Committee, met, and as of last week, this is the first time that there has been any discussion about platform ports being in this current master plan. The understanding was that pickleball would have priority because they didn't have courts, and that next year the energy would be put into building the platform. So I would finally just like to urge the board to take into consideration what it is you've heard from Jeff Nepper, who was at the last meeting, which finalized this understanding, and the importance of moving along with the project so that pickleball courts can be built this fall. We're on a short leash, and I appreciate your cooperation with the plan.
Anybody else on racket sports? Let me just say to everyone at this point, when it comes to the racket sports, we've had a lot of discussion here today, references to things going off the track and things like that. I think we can get cooperation back on track. We just need to communicate, and that's going to happen. Depending on what happened, the technicality of whether it's an adjunct committee under the tennis advisory committee or whether it's the TAC on their own, the reality is we did have, and I'm hoping we'll continue to have, a cooperative relationship in putting this together. I look forward to Bob meeting with the platform folks to work through the issues, and then we will re-energize and discuss this further next week. We're going to get this solved. Okay? Anna, it's your turn.
Up and down 10 times.
Try, Bill.
Louder. Can you hear me? I don't think it's working.
Bill, it's on. You got to talk right into it, sir.
Try it. Can you hear me now?
Why don't you wait for a little better?
Take your hand off of it, Miss Dawkins.
Something always happens to me.
We can hear you, Miss Anna.
We can hear you.
I hope you can hear me.
We will listen real well.
Tom, and I represent the Ocean Front Bridge Club. I want to thank Tom and President and the excellent board, and also our public relations, Teresa, do a great job, and I'm so proud to live here in beautiful Ocean Pines. Now, I have a concern. I represent our Wednesday Bridge Club. It's been in existence for over 40 years. Now, we never had trouble before like we're having now. And one of the main problems is we're not communicating. They're not treating us properly. And some of the concerns, I'm not complaining now. Remember that I'm not complaining. Now, here's some of the things that has happened. We have found we're not complaining. We don't get soap in the bathroom for 3 weeks, and we still don't have it. We wash our hands. We don't have towels. They run the sweeper when we're playing bridge. One man came and told us to leave. We didn't know who he was, and we were playing bridge, and we got in trouble because he was Casper, and I didn't know anything about him. So what happened was, with all these problems, I got a hold of Bob on March 5th, and we came to some agreement, and he was very supportive, and I really appreciate that. Now, lately, they're not giving us a place to play bridge. Well, they're not telling me. On the March 5th, 10th, July 10th, they told me we can't play bridge on the night
16 or 19 Wednesday, whatever that day was. And they knew a whole year that Casper does this every year. Well, why didn't they find us a place to play bridge? I suffered from that weekend to Monday, calling everybody, nobody responds. So when I got a call, they said, we're sorry, we can't find a place for you to play bridge. Now, is that right? I mean, come on. We're not arguing about anything. We're trying to cooperate with everybody. And we're not complaining. Again, I'm saying that. All right, now, well, I went all around trying to find a place I called the Yacht Club. They said we couldn't play there. I said, why not? Well, we don't open until 11:30. Now, I find out another group they let in, but they knew the board member, and he let them come and opened early. Now, they're not busy in the morning. We could have played there and had fun. It upsets me that they're treating us like second-class citizens. And I don't think that's right. We serve our community, we donate, and we do everything we can. And we love to play bridge, and we used to have a good time. But lately, it's just been awful. And now they tell me we can't play the 30th. Where are we going? Nobody told me where we're going. Now, what do I do now? And I'm asking for your help. So we don't have to be frustrated. We had a good time when it opened up. They told us we could play bridge. Well, we did. We had a wonderful time in the room at the community center. And I'm cooperating. They're not cooperating with me. When they send us up, now the 19th was the worst day of my life. We went to play bridge, and that was March, I think it was in March sometime, near the end of March. We were all set to go play bridge. And I get there, it's snow, there's ice all over the driveway, the door's locked, nobody told me a thing. And I panicked and I'm calling everybody. Nobody answers me. It's a whole hour before I got an answer. Because all these people are coming to bridge, and I had I called people I shouldn't have called, but I had no choice. You know what I mean? It's tough.
Anna, we get the point, and I think I would like to give Bob a chance to answer this particular case. I know, having looked into this from talking to you the other day, we've been able to find a space for your folks, and we've done it 50 out of the 52 weeks out there. There may have been some bumps here and there, but all in all, earlier on in the meeting, Bob referred to the fact, and we are up against it, but we have many, many, many different groups all wanting the same facilities to use at various issues. And Anna, you're one of them, but 99% of the time you're getting to use the space. So let Bob answer your concern, okay? I think that's what we need to know now. What are we going to do?
Now, what are we supposed to do?
Let's let Bob answer what we want to do.
I know.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Hey, Miss Annie, you get to hear from me again, I guess, in public session. You can't.
I want everybody to hear you.
All right, Miss Annie, can you hear me now? Okay. We have limited space within the association. You and I have talked about this. The concern, let's start with the 30th, the end of this month. You were notified of that a week or two ago, so you had 2 to 3. So you've had ample time to try to find other accommodations. We looked in this facility. We looked at the country club. The displacement with the country club, a couple of times it's happened. One, we had an event happening on the second floor. We couldn't put you in the balcony because they were 95-degree days with 95% humidity. It gets too hot. We had those issues last year, if you recall. Well, okay, well.
Come on. You're giving us, listen, I understand that. Let me tell you something. We have been here for how many? Over 4 years, this club. And we love playing bridge. Can't give us a place to play once a week. I mean, what's so hard about that? And we never had trouble before. Now, all of a sudden, I think I would like to turn this over to Bob. Bob, would you like to say a few words?
Bob, it's the name. Trust me. You had the same look I did, sir, when my name came.
My name is Bob Danchik, 7 Windward Court. Never.
It's working.
We've been here since 1981. We bought another lot in 84, and we built a house on it to retire, and we moved here 10 years ago time. We have been playing, wife and I have been playing Tuesday night bridge last time. And been a lot of difficult times, both of those bridge groups. But I think the board needs to know these ladies are playing in freezing conditions. Some of them have to go home because it's too cold. They're playing in hot conditions. It's so hot that they have to go home because they're getting sick. There was a promise before this building was built that they were going to be able to use this building. When you were trying to build a yacht club, you asked for support. These people supported you for that also. No reason at all why you can't find space, especially when you're putting a group on Wednesday that they're playing 40 years on Wednesday in Ocean Pines. You bring a group in on the outside to do financial planning or something. They could be scheduled any other day. This doesn't make sense. Pick up these ladies and some men also play in these groups. This doesn't make sense.
Now, to answer that, the majority of the time, your bridge club gets the country club pretty much exclusively on the second floor on Wednesdays. 2 events occurred this day, correct? Right. So, well, hang on. I'm trying to answer the question. The majority of the time, you have that facility for, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 to 6 hours. I'm sorry? No, I understand. I'm trying to answer this gentleman's question. Yes, ma'am.
You make me laugh. When we had that incident where I went to the board, I was told by one of the board members that I could speak on the 19th after all that confusion to tell my side of the story with our problem. And when I get there, they tell me I can't talk. Now, what is going on with you people? And that's the truth. And I said, well, I'm not leaving here till I talk.
Excuse me,
And
Anna,
I
you
stayed
did
there
speak
and
at that meeting.
You did.
You most
Definitely
definitely.
did.
We changed the rules for you so you were allowed to speak.
That's right. But
Okay,
you
the
said-
topics at the work session are, excuse me, Anna, let me finish, please.
Right.
The topics for the work session are 2
Yeah.
topic, and you were not one of the topics. We changed the rules so that you were allowed to speak at the end of the
End of the meeting.
So you did speak.
Fine. I appreciate it, and I'm not complaining. Now, what you did was you sent us over to the community center, and then they come in at 12 o'clock and say we have to leave, and I'm fighting with Joe Reynolds' wife. I didn't know it was his wife, that we have to get out. You know, it's ridiculous, and I can't take it anymore.
Anna, you do it. Thank you very much. You can sit. Thank you very much. We're
You'll help us. Where are we going from?
we're going to, Anna, have a seat. We're going to work on this the best we can. Okay? If we are working on it the best we can,
Can you let me know before Wednesday?
we will, as we have been doing, you get communicated with many times in advance of changes.
Please answer my call. That's what.
We do answer your calls. I call you back all the time. Okay. Yeah, we do communicate. Again, folks, we're not trying to put this aside. The reality is we're doing the best we can. We have 3 meeting rooms in this entire facility here. You can argue if that's the source of the problem or not, or a country club that gets cold and hot. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. My name, I can speak louder without
That's
I can
for the,
speak louder without that. My name is Linda Horst. I reside at 374 Ocean Parkway. I'm approaching you at this moment to ask for you to check with your lawyers that represent Ocean Pine. I am a grandparent. I have a lot of visitors at my house that have children, and I would like to know how close a registered child predator is allowed to be and be a member of an amenity here in which children frequent and children are very close by. I do not know what the legal distance is. I do not want to impose on this person's legal rights. They have rights, and I do know that. I have rights. When I stumbled upon this information, I researched it and found out it is a Tier 3 child predator who is currently registered. As a grandparent, I was appalled and I was extremely upset. I just had visiting with me for the last 5 days 13 children of friends. I wouldn't take them there, even though I have no idea of the frequency that this person visits the amenity this person is a member of. I do not know that frequency. I do know the person is a member, and he is registered online, and I checked that as recently as last. I want your legal team to please check that, and I'm just requesting for that. I do not want to impose on anybody's right, but would your legal team please investigate how close somebody's allowed to be to one of our child amenities? Thank you.
Ma'am, I can tell you I've already checked into it. Now, I don't know the amenity you're referring to, so I'd be happy when the meeting's over, I'd like to talk to you about it. However, recently one came up at our tennis facility was a concern. I don't know which one you're referring to. And I did look into it, did check with legal. The member has a legal right to use the facility.
Despite the fact that children frequent it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and despite the fact that there is a park in which children are there unattended with their parents because it is an open facility for children. Yeah.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to support
No, I'm just
the other
asking
side.
you.
Yes, ma'am, I checked.
Was the playground also in fact part of that?
I checked into it, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I was surprised at the response I had, but the legal response is this individual had a right to participate at that amenity, and I couldn't do anything about it from a legal standpoint.
From a legal standpoint?
Yes,
you
ma'am.
checked the legality of that?
I did, ma'am.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure that the legality of that.
So we, still after this meeting, we would like to know what amenity you're referring to, so we know. I mean, kind of walking blind here, but we'd like to know.
Well, I'm shocked and I'm appalled that it's.
No, that so is apparently you were too. That is the answer
I
you got.
did, so I'm with you.
Yeah, maybe the laws need to be changed.
You're right.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Ed, Gulf 34 Battersea. As you know, I'm interested in the junk, quote, derelict vehicle issue. And after listening to the conversation today, I'm a little confused. In the June 4th session, I thought we were going to resolve all this within 3-5 days. It doesn't sound like we did that. Are we ready to take action on some of these places, particularly the place next to me, 32 Battersea? Are we about to initiate some action, or are we still talking about this? And also 52 Battersea is an utter disgrace, as you all know. Can't believe that issue has lingered as long as it has. And I've met some of my neighbors down that end, and they are livid that this has been allowed to continue for this long. Are we ready to do something? Again, I'm confused.
Were you here earlier in the meeting?
Yes, sir, I was.
You know I'm ready.
All right, well, you'd be
Yes,
ready
that's right,
to
you.
do anything, or, you know.
I can't do it alone.
I thought we were going to have the procedures in place by this date that CTI or whoever would start going on these properties, or whatever it takes, maybe that's not right, to initiate action. So we're still not there?
Not there, but next Wednesday we better be.
They're on our list, 37 and 52 on our list.
I'm sorry?
37 and 52 Battersea are on the list that we were talking about that will be taken care of.
32 batters.
No, it's not.
No violation on file, but 37, 52.
I can't give you, I'm not going to repeat what happened earlier. We're going to meet on these on Wednesday and hopefully take action. We have the actions now to go to court. We simply need to vote on it, which I'm hoping we'll do next Wednesday.
Okay, but in my case, again, all right, apparently there hasn't been anything issued at this point. So, I mean, can't we follow the existing procedures and at least first take the first steps?
Nothing.
Boy, the silence is deafening here.
I just told the president, he said, what's
You've been dragging your feet too long. Time to do
Okay, but to answer your question, sir, not his, I have 52 and 37 written down. It's on that report that I distributed today.
37. Okay, it's not 32. It's talking about 32.
Okay, I have, I believe, 52 and 37 on that report. You're mentioning 32. I can't speak to that at the moment, but I will find out by tomorrow what, if any, action has been done.
Marty, how many times have I brought up 32?
The last 5 meetings.
Okay.
Am I right?
No
I've been by his house 3
Nobody's talking. None.
I'm sorry, Joe, would you repeat that? I think
There's no violation followed. It's never been submitted as a violation. Not next to you.
Right.
Bob won't see a thing because CPI has never filed violation of law.
But if we have a vote on this, this issue will be on there also. That you have my word on.
32 will be on there?
Yes. Even though we probably never even notified them.
Well, who's going to initiate the violation then?
Why it hasn't been initiated now, I can't tell you. It's not my job.
And have you, just a point of clarification, have you gone down to CPI to file?
Yes, I've gone to CPI.
Have you filed a complaint?
I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, please.
Excuse us, everybody. We're trying to help this gentleman. Ed, have you personally filed a complaint on that writing and CPI?
I wrote a memo, probably an email, 45 days ago, or
To who?
60 days ago.
To CPI or
To
to us?
CPI.
32.
So wait another week, is that what I'm hearing?
You got it. Okay. 32's on the list as well for Wednesday.
No, well, it can't be unless we have followed the procedure, Tom. We'll check on what's going on.
Tom's going to check it.
My name you know that 56 hours ago.
We can't hear you, Miriam.
Kenny,
Know how to work it.
put your mouth.
Speak right into the microphone, Miriam.
The question that I have in my mind, and I would like the board to think about it and decide, what is more important for the board? To make money on our facilities or to give the benefit of the facilities to those of us who have voted for them and paid them? I think sometimes we are the backseat of the people here. It seems more important to the board for them to make money and give us the option of going someplace else or forget about it, rather than giving us a place to enjoy our clubs, our rich groups and things like that. And I just wonder, what is the policy of the
A mixture of both. That's part of the conflict.
This building doesn't make any money, does it?
We make some. We make some.
Program.
Some.
Do we bump out of Ocean Pines Group for money?
The higher priority, I'm sorry, Marty, the higher priority is if someone wants to have a wedding or has a wedding booked. And that was a conflict we had recently. Wedding had already booked.
Mr. Chairman, would you...
Anybody else?
I think that what she's addressing, at least one of the things, is the Wednesday group being kicked out next week. When that apparently is a paid, you're paying, somebody's paying you, and you're kicking us out.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of that. I'm also, and I'm not insensitive to your situation, folks. But let's understand, we've got hundreds of organizations in this community, all of which pay their assessments. They all want to use the facilities, and you guys have gotten that facility 50 out of 52 weeks. I mean, I'm not deaf to the situation you're in, but at the same time, we need to recognize the fact that the second floor of the country club on Wednesdays, I would say 48 minimum out of 52 weeks a year, has been set aside for you guys to use it. So as much as I'm trying to be responsive to Anna and I take your calls and I call you back, we do the best we can to work with you. There has to be some reasonableness here that says there are other groups that need to use the facility. Okay? So we're not deaf to the problem, but let's try to work it out the best we can. Anybody else? Any other? Joe? I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I'm Ann Schwartz. We live at 98 Lookout Point. I'd like to know why the yacht club is not accessible to those of us that voted for it and paid. Is anybody in there on Wednesdays?
Are you talking about having meetings there? I'm sorry, Ann. You mean to do your club play cards there? Is that what you're talking about? It's a restaurant.
Understanding that some club group was allowed to go in there early, but the rest of us can't. That's not fair. And why are we not allowed to use it?
Well, what club group has gone in there early and used it?
There was some reference made earlier.
Well, I'm sorry, sir. What was the club?
Was another club.
He didn't say the club.
Yeah, it was a card group.
Well, okay, so there wasn't a group in there. Why are we not allowed to use the yacht club for functions? Why are we forced to go to restaurants and other places that are happy to take our money, yet we're supposed to support the yacht club? And we can't do it when we want to do it. We do it when it's dictated to us.
Folks, look, here's what I can tell you what I'm focused on right now. The yacht club's a restaurant facility, okay? We're focused on food sales. Other folks use the facility. I heard someone say earlier, I think it was you, someone got to use it early and got to use it, and then I heard, no, that's not the case. There's always rumors going around. Here's what I can tell you. Folks that use it pay a fee to use it, okay? There's a turnover charge to use on the second floor because it gets dirty, it gets displaced, it's a facility that requires attention from, it's an area where we can make some money and we're proving we're doing it. Correct me if I'm wrong, your bridge group plays 5-6 hours, correct? 4, 5. I can tell you.
10 to 2:30.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
10 to 2:30.
And Miss Annie, you get there at 9 to set up.
Yeah, I go here past 9.
Yeah, see, I track the time. You have a large block of time, and you don't have a small group. It's not a 4-person player group. You have 9 tables?
Well, 7.
8 to 9. Okay, so I'm closer. 8 to 9 tables. Think about what you're asking. You're looking for 5 hours of 8 to 9 tables out of business time where we could be selling product.
This is early in the morning. You don't get it.
Miss Annie, it's right through lunch.
By lunch. When we can't, not every week, only when we can't go to lunch. Why can't we do that? I don't know. I mean, I just want your help. That's why we came here. We love you and we appreciate what you do. Really mean that. And we love Ocean Park. We want to stay here and enjoy it.
Joe, you had your hand up.
He fell asleep.
Is it working?
Yes.
Is it working up there? Is it working up there?
I can talk into it.
Talk into it. We can hear you.
Anyway, Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road, lot 332, section 11. Like, that's from the old days. With regard to the gentleman who's had the problem with the junk cars, I've been over and looked at that. How many board members have looked? Gentlemen, leave.
Yeah.
How many board members have gone over there and looked at the two, what he says, junk cars in the driveway next to him? How many board members have looked at it? Okay. Most of them. That's good. I called CPI. CPI has never filed a violation on those cars. Nothing. Nada. Zero. And I asked, why not? And they said, we can't go on the property. And I said, you can go on the property because MO1, most people, MO1 says the general manager has the authority to tell his inspectors to go on the lot. But they won't go on the lot because the general manager won't tell them to go on the lot. At least that's their story. But that gentleman's very frustrated. He's been frustrated for a long time. Those cars have been sitting there, by one account, 7 years. By another account, 14 years. I'd be a little upset too if it was next to me. Now let me tell you what MO1 says. Somebody needs to read this stuff and start following. We put a lot of effort, board members put a lot of effort over time into this stuff. MO1B says it is the intent of the board that the general manager and CPI staff focus on those violations that significantly detract from the appearance of the surrounding neighborhood, present a health or safety risk, and or detract from our members' property value. We don't do that. What you're going to hear from today, I have a good guess, when we finally get to it in another 2 hours or so, we're going to hear CPI violations that talk about a decorative fence on a piece of property that looks beautiful. We're going to hear that. And here's this man with 2 cars. Over on 13, what's the address? 13 what? Not Juneway. Somebody help. 32.
Are you talking about the fence?
You talking about Teal Circle?
No. I'm talking about a house.
Teal Circle on the fence.
No, not Battersea. I took board member Jeff over there to show him this location 2 weeks ago. It's it's right off of Watertown. There's a house there that is a disgrace. It has to be in the top 2 of the worst houses in Ocean Pines. The decks around it are rotted. The floor the roof has tar paper on it. The inside is an absolute mess where waters fall through the roof. The walls of the house are rotted. There has not a single violation been filed. Nobody could see that house was there. Well, let me tell you something. Somebody got a permit and is building a brand new house right next to it. Now, how do you get a permit? Obviously, our inspectors have been going over there, but not a single violation has been filed in the house. That place is dangerous. It's a health hazard. No violation filed. I'll get you the address. This is going on all over the place. But today, we're going to hear about a piece of decorative fence that a violation was filed on a beautiful home with a $150,000 boat sitting in the front yard. Not the front yard, in the water. Right. Now, I'm going to take some place from this end. Okay. I like it.
I mean, you love me too?
Here's what I'm going to take from this end. Now, I'm not complaining. But Mr. Kumsack said we have a 0 target. Pete, I love it. I agree. We should have a 0 target. But we're only going to reach a 0 target when all of our businesses produce enough income so that the assessment and the balance at the end of the year are both 0. That is a goal. 0 assessment. June 2014 at the yacht club. Revenue of $304,000 almost. Amazing piece of revenue. Congratulations.
Amazing. We lost $6,800. I know there's excuses. We're startup. We're this. We're that. But Mr. Terry yourself, we're quoted in the paper, says, I'm anxious to see June numbers, see how it goes. But June 2007, in that dump that we tore down, that dump saw revenue in June of 2007, $224,000. That's only about $75,000 or so less than we did in this brand new $5 million facility. And in June of 2007, we made a profit of $50,000. Something doesn't add up here. Now, I've heard that Public Works is moving their offices over to the yacht club. The reason is they want the workers to be closer to their jobs. I don't know how much time, dollars, Public Works has put into that operation over there. I don't have a clue. I don't think this board does. God knows what that place is going to end up costing. The marine operation lost $1,245 in June. Last year, when we were reminded there were a number of problems with gas sales, there was actually a profit of $844 during the problem year. In June of 2012, the marinas made a profit of $8,730. We're going downhill. Aquatics lost $9,441 in June. Last June, Aquatics lost $10,009, and the year ended with the largest loss, I believe, in the history of Aquatics. So we're on track to do that again. Golf lost $6,327, set against a backdrop of a budget that had golf making $24,000 in June. This is not progress. This is not excitement. Well, maybe it is excitement to somebody, but not to me. Anyway, and finally, and I realize I'm going long here, and I appreciate you and your adults, okay? Because there's a lot on this agenda, which is kind of strange because it was only 2 weeks ago we didn't have the meeting because there was nothing to talk about.
We don't vote at those meetings, Joe. Keep going.
I mean, this stuff does get a little funny here, Tom. You got to admit that. Now, look. The schedule shows Ms. Moore is bringing up a code of conduct. This is absolutely incredible. Here's what I wrote back in December 1st of 2012. Here's the nitty-gritty of the absurd witch hunt by the general manager and some board members to stifle, move Marty Clark. Bob Thompson charges Marty Clark with making public comments about a possible insurance claim for damages to the yacht club pool caused by Hurricane Sandy. God, that's terrible. Marty said something in public about an insurance claim, maybe. Except at the time, I guess the general manager, when he made the charge, didn't know we didn't have any insurance policy. But he went ahead and charged Marty.
Are you referring to something that you?
Please, excuse me.
No, you just
let me
referred to
finish.
me and you made a false accusation.
You
That's
talk
not
for 2
fair.
hours. Let me talk. You can make a note and then you can come back, okay? And I'd be happy to debate you as long as we're going to do it on equal grounds. Sharon O'Hare charged Marty Clark with making comments about how OPA handled notification of association members with regard to a mandatory evacuation.
What is
Joe, is this from your
I'm
blog?
sorry, what is this? What are you doing?
This?
I'm trying to address what I believe explains the absurdity of a code of conduct. Because you people, let's assume that the board as it was constituted when you made these ridiculous, Mr. Terry, one last item about you. You accused Marty Clark for comments related to an OPA employee trying to fix a hole on Ocean Pine School. That is incredible. Then it gets sent over to Joe Moore, who investigates all the charges you guys made against Mr. Clark. Mr. Moore sends you a bill for $12,000 or so and says, there's nothing to charge this man with. That's a practical matter. I mean, at some point, how can we trust any board, let's assume you guys are the best we have available. How can we trust you guys, any four of you, to throw somebody off a board of directors because you don't like them for political purposes? I like what Dan Stikursky said before he changed his mind. He said, board members are elected by the association members, and only association members should have the power to move.
You done?
That's it. Thank you very much. And I'm not trying to.
Anybody else? Thank you. Okay, next thing on the agenda. Terry Ward.
Contrary to what was just said, this is not a code of conduct.
No, this is old business.
This is old.
We're done with the old
Done
business.
with old business.
We're done with old business. We already finished it.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we did it during the discussion.
Thank you.
This is not a code of.
Thanks.
This is not a code of conduct. It is a sample of a generalized code of ethics that every organization pretty much has a code of ethics within their guidelines. It is something that I was asked to do a year ago, and it's been batted around, and Joe usually makes comments about it. So I'm just giving you this sample again. There will be a new board in August. Do with it what you will. I'm fulfilling the obligation that I had to provide it, and really it's just for discussion for later. That's really all.
Period. You're asked by who?
I don't know. By who? What?
You were asked by who to do this?
Oh, well, no, it came up last year, and I never completed the process,
Okay.
is really what it is. And I didn't want to leave the board and not have completed this process.
Now, that's a date.
Okay, review of year-end numbers. Marty, anything else?
No, we've done it.
All right. Review of May, June. That's that. Membership report?
Right. No.
No? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to Resolution C14, which was my motion having to do with the tennis and racket. This motion submitted by myself for inclusion in this board meeting. The Board of Directors hereby accepts the first reading and changes to Resolution C14, which was advanced to you in advance of this meeting. Thanks all members of the existing Tennis Advisory Committee for their service. Terminates the terms for all existing members of the Tennis Advisory Committee. Appoints the following people to serve on a new Racket Sports Advisory Committee for these terms. The 6-year total will still apply. From the tennis community, John McNulty for an initial 3-year term. Leslie Shippey, 2-year term. Bill Rako, 1-year term. From Platform Tennis Community, Tom Herricks, 3-year. Diane Harris, 2 years. Scott Weekly, 1 year. From the Pickleball Community, Frank Kramer, 3 years. Julie Wolf, 2 years. And Bob O'Malley, 1 year. Appoints John McNulty as the chair of the newly formed committee. Background: representatives of the tennis, platform tennis, and pickleball players have been working together to develop and support a migration to a racket sports complex at the Racket Sports Complex at Macklin Creek. This effort has included the current chairs of the Tennis Advisory Committee, representatives of the platform tennis and pickleball, Sonia Bounds, and myself as the liaison. The effect of this motion is it reformats and renames the current Tennis Advisory. It does not create a separate or new committee. It provides for all 3 primary racket sports to help the GM and day-to-day management of the racket sports and OPA. It provides all 3 primary racket sports to help the board in its deliberations. You have a copy of the revisions for C14. I will look for someone to second my motion.
I will second it.
Okay. Discussion? Any discussion?
I guess it's not Jim anymore. bylaws and resolutions system.
Jim worked
Signed
through
off.
this with me on this.
It's signed off by them.
Yeah, Jim worked through this with me. It's just the first reading anyway on the actual budget.
That's scary. See this, where it means a lot.
I know.
Yeah, but you know, a lot's going to happen.
When did this finally get posted online? Wasn't on.
After first reading, it'll be posted. But
First reading is supposed to be online. Everybody. I mean, I don't think it's a legit first reading. That's my discussion today.
Any other question?
Nothing. I don't believe there's an S on Tommy Erick's.
Oh.
There are a few spacing problems, type problems, but other than that, not me.
That would be me.
From discussion items, Tom, or is this just first reading? Come back later and discuss it?
Yeah, I mean, first reading is first reading of any motion. You're not passing the C-14, you're passing a motion to create and revise the advisory. That's all this action does, is revise the advisory.
But it can change. Now, we're just voting to say keep going with the process.
You're basically appointing these 9 people to be in the new committee, is what you're doing. Thanking the people that are there. I mean, we've never gone through this as a transition before. Yeah, we've never done this before, and rather than create a whole new committee, they're looking to, as we've talked about all day, these 3 committees, they all agree who the players are, years, everybody agrees with this.
So what's the next step after that?
The next step of
I
this,
get emails in my hand that everybody does them.
Wait a minute.
what do you mean they don't agree with this? What are you talking about?
You didn't get any of these emails about people that committee is not signed off. Primarily, blah, blah, July meeting. This is from Jim.
That has to do with the problem with the platform.
No, this is C-14.
Well, and there's...
So can you help me? What is the next step after?
The next step after this is to get response and suggestions for any changes that need to be made to C-14 that allows this committee to begin work.
And Tom, you want to get it done by next Wednesday?
Yeah, I mean, that was the idea. They picked their people. This is no different, folks, than us suggesting to accept Audrey Wall and John Ferry to be on a committee that exists. We're just appointing the members of the committee and taking this as a first reading, which doesn't vote it into formal procedure.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, I'll call the question on the motion.
Here's a second.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you. Okay, any liaison reports?
Yeah, I got 2.
Okay.
Golf did not meet this month, but there's an issue that did come up. You were copied on it, Tom, as well as Bob Thompson. I discussed it with Bob Thompson. He's on top of it, as he says. One of our signature holes, Ocean Pines Golf Course, Twin Pines, they call them the Twin Sisters. 14th hole, these tall, isolated pine trees split and frame the hole and protect from lightning. Several other trees by copper lightning rods. A couple of years ago, some not terribly bright thieves stole the copper and were caught. Protection for the trees has not been restored, and it would be a tragedy if these were destroyed by lightning. Inquires to the status of plans, and this was dated 6:30, and Bob's already on it. Right, Bob?
I don't know what you're talking about. No, Jack.
Yeah, we're on.
No, here's what we're working on right now. Just as an update. I didn't realize we were going to bring it forward, but the update is there seems to be mixed review on whether the copper should go back up on those or not. We're trying to get a horticulturist to tell us whether it's recommended to have it or not. The copper is going to attract the lightning strike.
Right.
And if it's a heavy enough strike, you're going to damage the tree and kill it anyway. Is it better, there's taller trees near it, not to have the copper on the tree? What's the best? And right now I'm getting 50-50, so we're trying to get someone who's smarter than we are.
That's good.
To find out what the recommendation is.
Okay.
I know it was there before, but I don't have a good answer yet.
Okay.
Can I make a comment? You know how many times my balls hit those trees? Way too many.
I can't hit that. And then Bill and I attended the commissioners meeting, and I've got the documentation for the 2 meetings that we attended. 2 things that came up that directly impact Ocean Pines. I made copies for you, Bob, and because you got to get the information out. Number 1, Worcester County is funding an e-cycle electronics recycling household hazardous waste day on October the 11th at Shaw Elementary School parking lot. And the other issue are the water lines, and I'm going to read from this memorandum of understanding. We are hoping to begin the design effort. They're talking about the water lines. We are hoping to begin the design effort now so that bidding and construction can take place later this year and be completed prior to the 2015 summer season, as a large portion of the work will take place on Ocean Parkway. So I'm giving you that. And everything else, other items concerning the commissioners really didn't impact us.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, Bob, CPI. Famous fence, we've already heard of it. What do you want to do first?
17 Whaler. Okay. Just look at the picture. The house is just needs to be cleaned up. Basically, our recommendation is to either we're going to hire a contractor, which we've done in the past, power washing, and then just put it against the house property through the assessment.
Can I make a comment on that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Okay, I have this house is listed for sale, and I contacted the listing agent who was dealing with the bank, and she sent them their letter that we're going to be talking about this. So the bank has responded back that they are taking care of this from what I can gather. However, I'd say let's keep it on the radar, see if it happens in the next 2 weeks, and I'll keep tabs on it too and advise you. If it doesn't, I definitely think we need to bring it back, but I think we should give them a chance to pay for it and not us.
But I think everybody should make it that this particular Wells Fargo bank house doesn't owe back dues. They still owe us 5 houses. Back dues. Find somebody that's got a good working relationship with all. They actually owe us $49.89.70.
No, this particular home is nothing.
No, this house is paid.
So
is there agreement to put this aside?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't want to belabor the point, Marty, but most of these big banks, these big national banks, have regional VPs, regional directors. That's probably an individual we ought to get to know and try and put some pressure on these banks. Pay us any money that they owe us for whatever reason, because after all, people sitting out here in this audience are their customers or potential customers.
Freddie Mac owes us over $50,000.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Next.
Okay, 69 Bramblewood Drive. Letters have been sent, follow-up action. Member was contacted. I had agreed to do some work. Nothing was done. We'd like to recommended action, send to OPA for action, or, and I'm going to let the board decide on this, hire a contractor to remove the trees, debris, and repair the screens. Charge against their assessment.
Number 2 works. Number 1's proven not. I have a comment. How many directors look at this house? It's a well-kept house, except for a couple of piles of some stuff. But here's the notice Animal House on the way to this house? The one with the flags and the signs and the,
Every day.
and the what do you call it, stuffed
Every day,
dummies
Marty.
in the yard?
Hey,
Why are we looking at this house when the house on the way to this house is a pigsty?
Well, my question is this, Marty. When somebody makes a complaint, this sounds to me like this is being, so somebody must have complained about this.
No
is
doubt
that
about
correct?
it.
Okay.
So,
So,
animal.
no, I'm not disagreeing with what you just said. Perhaps someone should be making a complaint about that to we're talking about. But this one has had complaints. They've been working on this since 2013. My concern was that they talked, the son of the member, Paul, and said he was doing the work, but they didn't get his name, they didn't get his phone number. And I checked that, because I was there yesterday saying, what's going on? Because I saw wild animals running around there. Now, maybe they're feral cats, or maybe they're not. I don't know. But I'm just concerned about the safetiness of this
May I make a
household
motion?
demand.
Yes, you.
I move that we send a letter, certified mail, it's probably not an MO1, telling this guy that in 2 weeks we're finding him. 2 weeks from today, if we haven't heard from him, he is found in continuing violation. If we get a vote, a big vote, we'll go on the property as covered in 7 of the DRs. We'll clean it up, build.
Can I ask you a question? Oh, I'm sorry, give me a second.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, need a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a second discussion, and you can join it.
Yeah, the question I have is we've sent the letters. They were received. Latest letter, or the final letter was received very last day of May. Followed up inspection. The member's been contacted.
Okay, I changed my motion. My second will go on. Find him in continuing violation, go on the property, fix it and build.
Well,
The second step?
I agree.
Well, we just went through this process, and legal counsel was indicating that he needs authority to go to court. And
Not for this.
Not for this.
Not for this.
For towing cars, that kind of thing, we have to go. This we're allowed.
What about a house burning out? And we're going
That's
to
a different.
Different problem.
That's a different.
Are we taking down dead trees? And is that supposed that we do that, or just cleaning
We're
up the
allowed to
debris?
do cleanup, Jack. We're
What-
legally allowed to do.
Okay.
With a, what do you call it? It's not a regular majority vote. It is
Supermajority.
a supermajority.
2/3.
5-2.
It has
Thank
to be at least a 5-2.
Because you are entering onto someone's property.
So again, just so we're all clear, we want to get it cleaned up, and we also want to remove the dead trees that are posing a hazard, which we'll hire a contractor to cut them. And you see pictures of the trees. I mean, they're dead.
The dead trees are.
Repairing screens, to me, that's just a simpler thing to remove ones that are torn out. Why would we put money into fixing the screens?
It's probably easier to put a couple nails.
I'm going to call the question on this one, I think. All those in favor of taking action?
Can I get clarity on the action?
Yeah.
The action is.
Whatever you said.
The action is do what it says right here. Hold them in continuous violation. Hire a contractor to remove the trees, debris, repair the screens, and charge them for it.
And you guys are convinced we do not have to go to legal authorities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do
We're
not.
doing it for years.
Because we're hiring a contractor to take down a
We
tree.
do not.
We have the absolute right to maintain these properties.
Everybody agrees? All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay, 1318 Ocean Parkway.
Yeah. I didn't see anything wrong with his house. So,
It's unsightly in the rear with the.
well, I don't go to people's property, so I didn't see it. I did catch an ECC guy coming out and pushing clothes there. That's okay. I move that we find this guy in continuing violation
Did you see his past due assessments?
That's what I'm getting ready to do.
Oh.
And suing for his past due assessment.
The house has been vacant since 2002. I think it's abandoned.
Well,
It's got a note on ABC mortgages on the door.
It's got a what?
There's a note on the door that's been vacant since 2012.
Okay, so
And
it's
ABC mortgage's name is on. I don't know if foreclosure has occurred or not. I did check with my other real estate friends who do a lot of foreclosures. They have not even heard of ABC. But it's been vacant since 2002. And that's dated on.
well, then we're probably
So it could have been
putting good
vacant
money
before
after
that.
that, but we got to. You know, I'm not so concerned about the screen. You know, if the house doesn't look bad, it's obviously not been occupied. Let me say this: I saw 5 worse driving this.
Well, like I said, I'm back to the screen issue. If you're going to do fix the screens, I just take them down.
Yep.
Done. Just pull them down and don't even bother to put any more money into fix it.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay,
Well,
now,
wait, you got a motion on that.
He's got to go back now.
here's my question. On the 69 Bramblewood, fixing the screens or repairing the screens.
Fix it. That's what we.
Okay, and now you're saying on this
I'm
property,
not saying
down.
it. Sharon said.
Well, you did mention that this is back.
Well, actually, one of these is in the front.
Just from a consistency standpoint, if you're comfortable toggling based on the property, I'll follow whatever instruction the board says. I just want to make sure I understand.
I wouldn't fix the house up. My motion. I wouldn't spend $1. This guy's not going to pay us. We're in for $8,300 now.
We're not going to get paid. This is going to go to.
Oh, no question about that.
So that's why I'm saying the simplest thing is the neighbors nearby to just remove the screens that are hanging there, and
It says in the proposed action, repair/remove.
Yeah.
The motion is
Find them in continuing violation. Don't. Affect what they're asking for right.
Hire a contract.
And sue them for $8,335.
figure out this.
I can tell you, the sue's name's right here.
Is there a second on that one? So now we're moving screens or repairing them and suing them. Any other
Finding them
discussion?
in continuing violation.
Oh, yeah. Do you really want to sue somebody who might be underwater, or don't we want to look at it and make sure we're not wasting money?
I don't
What do you
think,
mean
my
suing
guess is
underwater?
they don't even own it.
Who cares if he's underwater? I'm talking about suing him as an individual.
Okay.
I'm talking about suing him. And I would get an attachment on his property up in Fort Maryland.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
No, I'm not. I'm in favor. I just.
Next.
Good morning. FIPD.
Okay, last violation, 18 Teal Circle. It's a metal fence, which is no variance or permit was issued. Follow up, and I believe this was the one with the letter attached. Yes. So our next step would be sent to the attorney for legal action.
Let me say something. I think there's a lot of comments about this house earlier because it is a nice looking home and it's well cared for. That is true. However, they're just not following our guidelines. The fence goes all the way down the water. Our guidelines say no closer than 15 feet to the bulkhead. They haven't got approval. If they have it from the county, they haven't gone to Ocean Pines to do. And it's a simple matter. They're just kind of not doing what they're supposed to do. I have another personal experience. I have somebody I know who's in a wheelchair. They put a similar fence up. I've seen it. And they went to the county. They went to the state so that that child who's in, or this young adult who's in the wheelchair, is not attacked by dogs from the next door yard that scares them. So they did it to protect their child, but they went and did the procedures, and they follow the rules and guidelines. I don't think that this one particular person is any different. We've got guidelines, we've got rules, we've got regulations. He's not following them.
I would rather see us going after the houses.
And Marty, we should be doing both, but he's not following the rules and regulations either. And because he's got a nice looking home doesn't make him any better or any worse than anybody else.
But it's worse. If the guy pays us the $105 fee,
it's done.
It's done. He ain't gonna do it,
Except
so we're going to spend
the fence is not
$500
supposed to be any closer than 10 feet to the rear property line or no closer to 15 feet to the bulkhead path. He's not following that. I didn't see any landscaping along the side of it with the fencing. He's not, the outside perimeter shall have shrubs or planting sufficient to screen the fence. He's not following the regulations, Ocean Pines paths. So if he doesn't follow them, then why should you or why should I if he doesn't have to?
Are we in a catch-22 here because Ocean Pines has the same fencing around its
No,
pool?
that's a pool. God's sake, pools are required to.
They're required. They're required to have fencing around. So this is strictly decorative. It's not protecting
He's not
anybody.
calling it a fence.
Huh?
He's calling it art. You know, I don't want to go back in history, but in 1987, Ocean Pines came after one person for fencing and lost. This is a loser. We can go after it. It's $105 we'll collect.
And see, that's the simple. If he's got the county permit, why doesn't he just pay the Ocean Pines permit and get it and be done?
Read his letter. It's going like this. You know,
So then we should just roll over?
it? Well, what are you going to do? You're going to assume and lose. Somebody make a motion on it.
It's a dump.
It's not
It's really
jumpy.
not.
The rules are black and white. He's following them or he's not.
The boss go after the
I make a recommendation that we send the OPA attorney for action.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Did you get that, Michelle?
Nope. I was through.
I'm
sorry, you write a letter to Ocean Pines blatantly stating that the guidelines don't apply to me. I mean, that's basically what the guy said.
Tom, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But my goodness, if we're going to expend 500 hours because of a $150 problem, what are we going to do? Are we going to tear the fence down? Are we going to require him to tear the fence down? Come on.
Appointments, I have Audrey Wall and John Ferry to the clubs. Any objections to
No
that?
objection.
Okay. Media questions.
What was the address for Teal Circle House?
It's 18.
And what was the road and address of the board?
I didn't even know what the vote was on the Teal. What was the vote on?
Was that 1318 Ocean Parkway, perhaps, Nancy?
Yes.
Okay. That was to send the OPA attorney for action.
Unanimous.
Oh,
Unanimous.
vote was unanimous.
And was the vote unanimous for 69 Brown?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question. You all presented an overall budget variance of 14,000 that looked like an annual, and then there was another one that slide said June year to date, but it sounded like Bob Thompson said it was June. So, and that was a 65,000 negative variance overall. So was it really June that was the 65,000?
Year to date.
Year to date, May and June.
It said on top, year to date. May and June, yeah.
Months.
Excuse me, too.
Could you clarify what was discussed? You had made mention about the closed meeting, about property. Could you clarify that a little bit? I didn't quite catch what occurred.
Basically, we had a property. We've had two closed meetings. We've had properties that we're looking at our list of delinquent assessments. Those who owe us money, multiple years of delinquent assessments. and the property we see is showing up in the paper to go to foreclosure, we're evaluating them one at a time. If there appears to be value where we could recoup our losses of the assessment that's overdue. In closed session, one property was elected to move forward on, to acquire. The other property didn't look like there was enough room
To acquire. That's the part I missed.
Yeah, look to buy it at foreclosure.
Okay, that was the part I missed.
So we bought one property at foreclosure.
Okay.
It has not settled yet.
Okay, that's the part I missed. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?